Come now, all you mangy dogs. Swab the decks and hoist the sails. The guns on board be needing some proper manning. Pieces of 8 and a fine wench on your arm. If your work be not too shoddy. Careful not to flounder too badly, though, or you may have to dance the hempen jig as we see you to Davy Jones. Jeffy, my boy, on with the show.
Welcome, everybody, friends, folks, foes, and fellow pirate mateys, to this week's Friday night feature episode of Pirate Radio Podcasts. It is show number 168 with our guest, Al B., host of Forum Borealis. He is a good friend and fellow pirate matey now, this being his third trip to visiting us here down in Skullport Harbor, joining us upon the Robin Hood, so well acquainted with the way we have things in place, other than the fact that we are going to be streaming this out live, and he has joined us out of Norway. It's a little early for him right now, but before we turn our sites to Al, we are just going to provide a quick overview of his project, Forum Borealis, what he has in place, essentially. So for those who've yet to investigate their richly treasure-laden YouTube archive, Forum Borealis is a paradigm-expanding podcast exploring controversial, marginalized, innovative, obscure, anomalous, and system-critical topics. Producing in-depth conversations with some of the most renowned authors, scholars, researchers, and freethinkers of the age, their shows typically cover a multitude of areas, including history, culture, current events, philosophy, science, and parapolitics. Once again, while the past two encounters we've produced have been pre-recorded affairs, approximately 90 minutes in length, this week's live stream could potentially run as long as 3 hours. It's something that Al himself had requested we considered doing, so depending on his energy level, what he's got in the fuel tanks this morning out of Svalbard, which I guess once again it is about 5 a.m. that we'll just have to play things by ear. Al, I know we had you there in the pre-show with the audio tech check. How is the energy holding up? Did you get any sleep last night?
No, I slept in the daytime. It's the only way I can do this, man. So this isn't early for me; it's late.
Wow. So all right, it's not a something that you're overly familiar with, though, as far as your routine is concerned.
You mean live streaming?
Well, that of course, and working, the graveyard shift, burning the midnight oil.
Oh yeah, no. I'm an adept at that, man. Wow, no, I'm really a night owl. But these hours sucks. I've told you this many times. I've nagged you about it, but there's nothing we can do. You operate from Asia, so. But there's technically gonna be a time during the diurnal which would appeal to all hemispheres, right? We're gonna try do that next time we talk. I'm gonna have you on, and we're gonna find a time that suits Europeans, East Coast, US, which are actually where most of our listeners are, is Europe and East Coast. And of course, Asia, Oceania, and West Coast. There has to be some time during the diurnal that can reach all of them. So we'll try that next time, right?
Sounds good to me, and I am very much, of course, looking forward to being a guest on your show. It's always a real pleasure and honor, frankly. Anytime somebody does invite me, I am just someone who, I have something to contribute, as do most
Absolutely.
people.
I mean, now we have the perfect excuse because you popped my live cherry, right? So next time I'm experienced, and we'll have you on for a live show. That's how we can do it. I told you that before we went on, because the normal format we do hasn't been very suitable for that. But yeah, you come on our show and we'll do a live session then. And I hope with better hours, I hope we can attract more listeners too.
Yeah, you're somebody actually who has the algorithm end of things worked out quite nicely, from what I understand. It's something that is, beyond me, frankly. So once we manage to get a better handle on that, we'll probably end up drawing better numbers and not finding ourselves relegated to the internet ghetto where we currently reside. So,
hey man, the algorithm, it's a perpetual battle. I'm telling you, you have to. It's a whole job just understanding how it works, and it changes all the time too, right? Of course, for the verse. So you have to study up on how it works and try to battle it. I actually had a chap on, you probably know him, Cliff High.
Yep.
It's not released to the public yet because we have a huge archive now. We have a bottleneck. So we have I think 20 unreleased shows. And people nag about that and complain because they think it's deliberate, but I wish we could get it out. Anyway, so we had him on recently. It's not out, like I'm saying, but what we did there was that we went into that topic because it is a topic all of its own. We call the show Secrets of the Digital World. I think that was the title. And he lectures us because he's like a genius on these things. So he explains a lot about how that works. But if you know how to roll with an algorithm, then you can manipulate it to your advantage.
Indeed. And as I was saying, this is something we'll have to better get a handle on here over time. So for those who are not overly familiar with your show, you yourself personally, of course, Al, why don't you provide them with, even though we did address matters as best we could in the introduction, turn things over to you, allow for you to take a shot at things as far as your thumbnail bio rundown is concerned.
Come again?
Well, let's hear. Let's get clear on your bio background, of course.
Really?
Yeah. That whole business, as well as just the numerous shows that you have archived, the guests you've interviewed,
right.
that sort of deal. Let's just for people newbies who are not familiar with Forum Borealis.
Yeah, some people use the word conspiracy. But I have a pet peeve about that because conspiracy isn't a topic. A topic is philosophy, for example. We do that. We do politics, history, science, culture. We've done some stuff more than others. But then there may be conspiracy within such a topic. You see what I mean? Plus, anyway, I don't like that term because it's a completely artificial bullshit term. It's fortunately dying now, especially after the Epstein thing. Even pseudo-skeptics start realizing that, there is actually such a thing as lies in the world and corruption, which is what conspiracy boils down to. So we try to be a little sober, not go, because normally conspiracy is used either to shut down criticism, system criticism, power critics, or blatantly secrets from being exposed. But conspiracy is also used for paranoia, speculation, or people who just don't handle scientific thinking, who can't think rationally, logically. Logical fallacies, right? So you take something which you think is fishy, and then you blow it up and see connections that aren't there. So conspiracy is this huge term. It's just impractical. And so I don't accept using conspiracy to describe our shows, although we do touch upon conspiracy facts sometimes. Not in all shows, but in some shows we do. So I just wanted to put that out there first. But we've done a lot of external mysteries or phenomenons. We're going to do a little internal for the next year, a little focus on stuff like psychology. For example, I want to do a show on psychopathy and narcissism. That's always interesting. And that can be both from an individual perspective, but also in a broader collective perspective. Because if there's such a thing as psychopaths out there, you can bet they are also on the scene, right? It's not just a personal problem in your life. You have someone in your family, friends, an ex, whatever, right? But it's also something that you have to relate to on the collective level, because they will ascend to positions where they can live out their psychopathy. So that's a very interesting subject. So we try to do new things all the time, because we have a lot of stuff we want to cover. But then again, we have also tied us to the most of certain series we're making. So we have to, continue those too. So in a way, we're all over the place. But in another way, we also go down a deliberate road. So I don't know. It's not the topics that's special with us. I think what's special with us is that we do, like Joe Rogan and some others, we do long form very deliberately. That's why I try to push you to go beyond your 1.5 hour today. I prefer long form. Otherwise, just when we get into the flow of the conversation, then, time's up. I don't like that. So that's one of the things. And another thing, and I have that in common with my friend Alex over at Skeptical, is that I can't shut up, especially not if I'm passionate about something or knowledgeable about something, then I contribute. Some people like that. I don't know if the majority enjoys it, but certainly those who listen to our shows, otherwise they wouldn't have listened, right? So that we do, and I also try to go in depth and ask smart questions, because I often irritated of, let's say, a George Norrie. He's an easy target, of course, but let's just use him. I listen to, why didn't you ask that? Oh no, why didn't you ask that? And okay, so do it yourself. So I try to ask them the questions that I would want to hear them being asked. You see what I mean? So I guess something comes out of that brew. You want me to go on?
No, I actually, that's fine. I just was multitasking here. Had to unmute myself. I typically, when the guest is speaking, I try to keep myself muted. But yeah, you really touched on a lot there that we could further, dive into, I suppose, with respect to the psychopath thing. Really jumped out at me in a big way. But that aside for the moment, let's just a quick rundown of some of the guests that you've spoken with, that you've had on board. Richard Hoagland, I got a real kick out of that. Michael Schratt, Bob Fitrikis, and Alex Tsakarias, I think is how you pronounce his last name. Sounds
you're really struggling with the Greek pronunciations there.
But yeah, that's fine.
Both of them are Greek.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Dick Hoagland, though. I mean, I was listening to him, and I was thinking that he's somebody who I wouldn't mind maybe having on our show in 2020. We don't typically go for the bigger, more established names, as regular listeners know. We typically set aside 3 weeks for the independent, underground, unknown, up-and-coming grassroots people, voices, personalities, what have you. And then about once a month, really, we like to we'd like to have that available for more established names such as Richard Hoagland or Catherine Austin Fitz, another great individual that you had on board, of course. So, but what are some of the and Joseph Farrell as well too. So you really do go for the big names, and I know there's some people out there that do. Dr. J, Radio Live, he's another host, Dr. J, who really does shoot for the stars in that sense. But just because the way we have things formatted here, I mean, hashtag WWRHD, what would Robin Hood do? Our philosophy and spirit to our mandate is we work to promote the grassroots, of course, up-and-coming, independent, underground type talent, voices, people just with stories to share. Which, who are you going to have back over the course? Who can we look forward to in 2020 then? I know you've got extensive archives once again, as you mentioned, that you've yet to work post-production on. But who can we look forward to as far as guests for the coming year?
Many aren't confirmed, but we're working on getting some other big names on too, like Graham Hancock, and Randall. No, what's his name? Damn, I'm blanking on him. A colleague of him. But you mentioned Hoagland. Good luck, man, getting him on. If you even get him on, he's legendary, hard to interview. And I'm saying that as a fan of him. I have tremendous respect for him, and I defend his virtue when he's attacked, because he's super attacked. He's a really old god of this area here, and he's done a tremendous lot of work in this area. But if you think I'm passionate, try talking with him. So it would be cool listening to that if you manage to get him on. I can do an introduction, but his wife recently passed away, so he's been out of it for a while. I'm going to have a colleague of him on who also stands in for him in his radio show. He's like a graphic artist who's on his team, Enterprise Mission, and involved in his new book about Mars. I think it's called, what was it called again? I forgot the title, but it's about the Martian mysteries, the structures and ruins on Mars. So he's gonna come on. He was actually, I was actually going to interview him last week, but his father passed away, so stuff happened, so we postponed it. But we're going to continue a lot of those series we already have going. I have one particular guest. I haven't heard from her yet. But if I get her on, it's going to be a similar show as the Michael Schratt thing. It's going to be really sober, yet mind-blowing about the classified space program thing, which is leaking out now anyway, everywhere. Trump's space fleet. About guests, I would encourage our listeners. We get a lot of recommendations and suggestions from listeners. Hey, you should have this on, that on. That's all fine, folks. But who you really should raise that with are the guests. You should really go to the people you want us to have on, and you should tell them, hey, you should get on Forum Borealis. Because here's the thing, folks, and this has to be said. Most of these people who are guests at shows, they don't have time listening to radio and podcasts. They don't sit there, they're not junkies like us. And especially not you and me, Jeffy, because we have to kind of understand what's going on for a living. But these people who write books or make films or whatever they do, they're super busy and they're out of touch. Often they are not the youngest amongst us either, so they're not as updated in the podcast world. So they would have no idea who Forum Borealis. And many of them won't even go on podcasts. They are, or just the big ones, because they haven't realized because we're living in a transition time now as far as media goes. Not everybody has realized that. And some people become too big, quote unquote, so they're very hard to get on. The only way to get them on is for their audience to mention us many times so that they have heard about us, because otherwise, what's this? Forum Borealis? I have no idea what it is. So I think I would say 50% of the guests I've invited on, I haven't even heard from. Some I hear from, they ask some follow-up questions, and then I never hear from them again. It's very hard to get people on, actually. And sometimes you have to work. And like Hoagland, I worked for 1.5 years to get him on. And I had to use several insiders. I even had his wife on before I had him on. So it's such a pain in the neck to get the right guests, to get the guests you want. That's why we need help from listeners. They have to put us on their map, because as soon as these guests realize, oh, my audience, my target group actually wants them to get the forum treatment, then it gets so much easier. Also, of course, it helps with a so-called introduction. That's like, for example, who was it? I think, Alex Sakiris of Skeptical gave me an introduction to Dean Radin, the famous researcher into parapsychology and stuff like that. So I'm going to have him on. So that works. That way can also work. But we really need help to get, because not everyone, like I want to give 2 guests out as decent exceptions. That's Joseph Farrell and Cliff High. Both of them don't care. They don't ask what's the numbers, how big of an audience do you have. They're more passionate in terms of the matter. That's what they care about. Like, for example, Cliff High, he knew about us already and he liked us. And he knew what would happen if he came on. So, bam, he came on. So, he's real. That's so great, because then you're not a prostitute. And the same with Joseph. I'll give Joseph much credit for why we actually exist, because he was one of our first guests. And his people, the so-called geezers, took a liking to us, and that helped us get us going. So much thanks to Joseph. Kudos to him for getting us rolling. I could go on.
Well, no, that's fine. So, Joseph Farrell lending a hand, then, is what you're saying there. What the comment that I was going to, something that really struck me, you said you had Hoagland's wife on, and then she died. Coincidence?
Yeah, that's the question. I don't know. You never know these things. She was a really vocal power critic. We discussed the other day the woman who I've tried to get on, who are blowing the whistle about dead doctors, dead health workers, suspicious deaths.
Erin Elizabeth, that's one for sure.
So Robin, Dr. Robin, she's kind of the same kind of person like those. She was, for example, she was researching biophotons, but you never know. It may have been, the disease may have been natural, not natural, but like real. So it's very hard to say. So I don't know. It's just a matter of speculation. I don't want to it's a bit tacky speculating, because I can relate to her personally.
I was actually Al, saying that as a bit of a joke, believe it or not. Although it is possible. Oh. No, it is possible that there was foul play involved. I have no idea as to the circumstances leading to her demise, and just making light, of course, in some ways of
A
I was
very
trying.
vocal
Yeah.
critic we lost a very vocal critic, and she had her own radio show.
Oh,
You
this.
know,
So this was. So his wife was Dr. Robin. Is that her? Was that her name?
Robin Falk. Yeah.
So, and what did she? How did she pass away then? All in
She
very,
suddenly got a certain disease. I don't know if I'm comfortable talking about it on air. I don't
well.
know if this
So
is.
it's not public. It's not on the public record. It's not in
That's
public
what I'm
domain.
not sure about.
Okay. Well,
I have to check.
well. Yeah, I'll look into it after the show then, I guess. Or what we can have is some folks out there in the peanut gallery, if maybe Reverend Jim or someone such
Yeah,
as
but
that.
I don't want to start a conspiracy theory about her.
Well, no. I mean, hey, whatever's out there in the pub. Hey,
don't
it's
blame me.
know-
People are free to think what I want,
well,
but you didn't hear it from me.
independent underground journalism. We are
Yeah.
part of the Fifth Estate here. You surely you do realize, and that we engage in a very promoting and cultivating a very open discussion and conversation, flow of ideas, hopefully from time to time with a little bit of mirth, lightheartedness, and our best attempt at comedy thrown into the mix. Because to be totally serious about everything all the time, I find quite depressing, frankly. So that's why I do believe it's important to take look at things in a more just lighthearted sense. But yeah, this is news to me. So this has now really got me curious as to what actually occurred. I have no idea, frankly. How recent was this?
If you see my Twitter, I had a eulogy or whatever it's called, epitaph. It's not that long ago. I was even going to have her back, but at least I got her on.
Well, I'm sorry to hear this, and it's. I was making a bit of a gallows humor, or just a little dark joke there, of course, that trying to make the connection between the fact that you're speaking of logical fallacies earlier. After this, therefore, because of this, post hoc ergo propter hoc, that because she appeared on your show, she died. Therefore, hey Al, what did you do? Like laying the blame totally at your doorstep. So yeah,
No, she had a good time at my show.
Yeah. Well, that's good. And because we never know, do we? Any of us, when our time will come and under what set of circumstances. Silent weapons for quiet wars, though, I will tell you, is something that has got me doing a lot of thinking as of late, and I think a fair deal of our listeners as well, too. Let's just put the brakes on that for the moment. You can address that in just a second if you like. In the meantime, let's give a shout out to Robin Hood, of all people. Can you believe it? The one and only Robin Hood has, in fact, shown up to the peanut gallery here. Over.
Oh, I thought that was you.
No,
that's not you.
No, I wish we had that claimed that name. And had that channel.
That's the name of the ship. It's the name of the ship.
It most certainly is. That we sail out upon the high digital seas here, upon the Robin Hood. That's right. Very much, tied. And if you look at the merchandise now, the swag that we've been rolling out via our store over on Teespring, that we are definitely working on incorporating that into some of the T-shirts, the coffee mugs, and so forth, that we are getting off the ground, and that we're going to work into our Operation Secret Santa campaign coming up here on the 15th. I know it's something you want to talk about, Al, but once again, just we're going to keep the sights on what we have taking place out here. The chat rooms. John Armstrong is another looks like colorful character who's dropped into the conversation, a new face, a new personality. So that's really wonderful. We've got about 12 people over on YouTube altogether, and on D Live, I've actually got to pull up the browser. We just booted up our Restream chat, so as listeners can hopefully appreciate, there's just so much in the way of logistics here that go into putting a show together, a kind of one-man deal here in many ways, unfortunately, from a technological standpoint, that it really does require a lot. I'm going to try to show you some of the ropes here. If you're interested, I know we worked together on this just a day or so ago, Al. And as far as the live streaming end of things, I'm more than happy to help you out and get you, more in a position where you can, do this sort of thing. Obviously, so. But in the meantime, just the people. We got Michael Carey over there on Facebook. Not much traction, strangely enough. Speaking of algorithms and the like, very suspicious of what we see taking place on Facebook after having tagged nearly 100 people. And, there's like maybe 1, 2, 3 people tops is the most we've had via Facebook here.
Are we streaming at Facebook?
Oh, yes. We're multi-streaming on Facebook, DLive, and YouTube. So typically we draw in about 20 people, and last time we had 30 with you with our live conversation. So right now we'll just have to play it by ear. But I'll give. Yes.
Yeah, but I can't see. I'm following the chat at YouTube, but it's not the same chat at Facebook, right? It's going to be a different chat.
Correct. That's right. And when we actually issue a put a comment here through the Restream feed, that goes to DLive and YouTube. Facebook kind of blocks it for whatever reason, just as they do with Minds.com. Any content, people, you try to share to Facebook, the hashtag the Kraken, via Minds.com, they block, they throw up all kinds of, there's so many hurdles in place where you have to, CAPTCHA confirmation and endless just nonsense, clicking on windows that look like bikes. How many bikes do you see? How many flowers do you see? That kind of nonsense. And just to the point where people just get frustrated, of course, and decide not to freely share the content. That's one thing that another area where we can go with the conversation here, Al, the state of social media, frankly, and just so much in the way. It's hashtag cock blocking, as I like to put it. It's a very in a big way, and the cock shaming too, which to me, they talk about like the Me Too movement, which is wonderful. Of course, that's important place to, important for us to reflect upon. Naturally, it's never good to see anyone mistreated or abused, or.
I mean, we all have mothers, sisters, daughters, wives, girlfriends.
Oh,
we don't want the creeps out there. You remember the creeps from school, right?
Yes. Well, yeah.
They get in power positions,
right?
And then they start creeping on our girls. No, if we are men, we protect them. God damn it, and we confront the creeps. But that said, I agree with you. There's like everything can be exploited, like rape, right? Nobody wants your girl to be raped, but then there are always, just as there are certain males who will do stuff like that, there are certain females who will, because it's not a male against female. It's I don't know what to call them, the faulty people against the decent people. So there will be girls who will turn around and for example, use false rape accusations as a weapon, or to defame you, because defamation is a very female way to take someone down. It's the same way with the Me Too movement. That can be, it's kind of the same thing. They don't have to go as far as say he raped me as a lie. They can also say he fondled me, or I don't know what these things they are accused of, but any of those things. And the dangerous things about that is if you're going to be judged without a jury, in a public trial. That's the problem, of course. So it's some kind of balance we have to find there, because in a way I enjoy that people like Harvey Weinstein, whatever, and Epstein and these guys are exposed. It's wonderful, isn't it? But that is the court of public opinion. But what do you do then if an innocent person is being struck by that? That's the problem. I say it's always important to remember the old ideals. And one of them says it's better that 9 guilty go free than 1 innocent being taken down. I don't know how to translate it to English, but you see what I mean. And of course, the American injustice system is opposite. They rather kill a bunch of innocent people than than let a guilty go free. So that's kind of the same problem we're dealing with here, right? So I'm not like either or about this thing. I approach it on a case-to-case basis because I do support our sisters in their liberation from these creeps. But I also support our brothers who are being taken down by, I guess we can call the girls creeps too when they do this. Because who are they really hurting when they commit false accusations? They're really hurting the victims, their sisters. Like if a girl is actually raped and another is not raped, and the one who is not raped claims she's raped, then it's like wolf, right? It's going to be a harder case. Or then we won't believe it when a girl is actually raped. So it's a very complex, and this goes to the dichotomy thing that we've discussed earlier. People are so quick to go into wings, sectarianism, tribalism, like in politics too, parties. You're completely lost if you cheer on a side, because that's not how the world works. It's going to be bad and good, to put it simple, in any camp, in any tribe. So you have to really smoke out the bad wherever you are. You see what I mean?
Yes, I do indeed. And I was just actually, sorry for the delay there, trying to get a new slideshow updated and in place. So, but yeah, I mean, you are indeed correct. There's very few reasonable people that would argue with much of what you laid out there. It's pretty straightforward, I would say, and something that we should all reflect upon and working to, here's an example of what for me really left a big impression in my younger days. I was in my mid-20s, young, dumb, and how's the saying go? Young, dumb, and full of cum. So and that's just that's how young people are. They're all pumped up with their hormones and so forth, and
the creeps are rarely young people.
Well, they're just
no.
That's like the Bill Cosby types there that are
Bill Clinton,
spiking. Yeah. So
grab them by the pussy.
No, but the point I was going to exactly. The point I was going to make has to do with looking upon women as your sister or your mother or your aunt or your grandmother. That's what my Buddhist friend, she was someone who practiced in the Tibetan tradition. That was largely her sphere, although she was initially, I think, her first experience was from the Zen end of things. But she just simply said that was something that we should reflect upon when we look at a woman. Put the lust aside for a moment, if you can. Hopefully, guys can do that. And just look at them as your sister, mother, daughter, grandmother, aunt, any of those sort of things.
Girlfriend.
Yeah, just a human being, with and the problem is, though, one of the problems, it's a complicated area of conversation, but there's so many people when they get into relationships that they have baggage. Real baggage. And that's not good. This is not good. And you're right. There are women who do put forward baseless claims, and they target men for it's a opportunity of some sort is what they see, I suppose, in winning legal suits or landing some sort of payment, picking up a little bit of money, or they could be it could be just purely political in the sense of working to take somebody down, that underhanded really, and diabolical, and totally working to do whatever they can to destroy somebody's career and reputation. But anyways, we can circle back to any of these issues at any point. I'm just going to give once again a quick shout out to Daniel Thorne is somebody we're seeing here now, a new personality joining us here in the
and remember also to pitch me some of the comments from the listeners.
Well, you can see what's taking place there.
Yeah, but I mean,
YouTube.
it's also for the benefit of all the listeners. I mean, in fact, some of the more lucid comments, we could read them. We could after half an hour, we could just touch base with the comments, read some of them, and then move on.
That's typically how we roll here, man. We're very much interactive with our people out there who join us, so that's why it's important for us to acknowledge them. Sword Point 9, that's of course our Chief of Security, Kaiser Schuff, Joey Boomer. We've got Free Cosmos as well too, aka Tommy Shutter, somebody I've suggested you actually contact. And speaking of booking,
is that the chap from yesterday?
Speaking of booking guests and so forth, he's free Galactic Perspectives, the show we did yesterday.
He made some very good points about the structures of the world yesterday.
Right. Yeah. Great show. So, somebody that I've been working on doing what I can to help, land some co-production credit, at least getting you booked there. And I think you'll probably be able to work out hopefully a little better time than what we've done here. So, but that's just the way things go once again. And as we're doing this, I'm actually working on, once again, multitasking, seeing if we can get the slideshow in place here. Not sure what's going on exactly, but there's a few new pictures I was hoping to bring on board. We see something taking place there now, so that's great. Picture of, I'm not sure if that was on your Facebook or not, the Tibet Nazi historical connection there, of course. I'm not sure how much you know about that. I'm sure it's come up a time or two during your show, presumably. But yes, indeed. So that's a great historic picture, actually. I'm not sure what more I can deliver as far as a description or insight to the matter. But I'm sure listeners have seen the movie 7 Years in Tibet. It's one that I would regard as and consider definitely worth rewatching, of course. So that was quite a fascinating period of time, chapter in history. The pre-World War II, going into the start of the major conflict that did kick off, starting in Europe, I guess, really, and then spreading out to various other theaters. And don't you love it? Don't you love it, Al? The way that we hear from the highest levels, commentators and military personnel and so forth, the theater of war. It's all a big stage show, It's a pretty serious one, though, unfortunately, where a lot of people end up losing their lives. And speaking of which, World War I, World War II, I mean, I can't help but regard us as right now, so many people ask, are we going to have World War III? Alex Jones, great example. Got to watch out. We're right on the verge of World War III. It's coming up real soon. We got to be really careful here and, take a look at what's going on. But the fact of the matter is, people such as Alex and others, I don't understand why they don't see how, in fact, World War III, as far as I'm concerned, kicked off really with September 11th. That was the Hegelian, the catalytic event in conjunction with what the neocons and the PNAC, Project for New American Century, they had wanted. That was their early Christmas present that year, of course. And it's led to, 3,000 lives were lost on that day within the context of this conspiracy. And even the official narrative, let's not forget, is a conspiracy. There's people working, if you believe that it was these Saudi largely based, I guess it was Al-Qaeda pilots, essentially, who commandeered the planes, but 3,000 people approximately may have, did lose their lives on that day. There's a couple million have since then have had to pay the price, the ultimate price. Many of them innocent victims, of course, because of Washington's foreign policy. The Trump administration just this past week recently.
Yeah, but whose foreign policy is it really?
Well,
isn't it interesting that
Uh-huh.
Obama was campaigning on
Yeah.
another foreign policy? Trump was campaigning on it. In fact, everyone who does campaign on it wins.
Wasn't Obama? Hang on, Al. Wasn't Obama campaigning on a level similar to what we're seeing Tulsi Gabbard, a CFR member, which you don't hear much.
The first time around.
Okay.
Yeah, but he was the problem with him was that he didn't have much of a record. Americans should really look into the record. I'm saying Americans because in Europe, money isn't normal in politics. But in America, bribes are not just legalized. It's become the system. So people have to look at people's records, and if you do look at the record, you can look how have they voted, because the record gives it away, gives the show away. But they listen to rhetorics instead, naive people, because they will say anything to get your vote. But if you look at what they actually have done, there you will see the bidding of their owners, basically. And that's why you mentioned Ron Paul. You have certain autists in politics. I call them autists because I guess both Bernie and Ron, two old timers, right? Different side of the ale, of course, but they've been very consistent against war and also against taking bribes. So basically, if you're an American and you want to vote, don't care about wings. Care about, I think the most important thing is the honesty and integrity of the person you're going to vote, because in America you vote for persons rather than movements or parties. And so you have to take someone who you know is uncorrupted. Otherwise, good luck with the sinking ship. Second, you have to look at the solutions they are fronting. So, but usually they do have sound solutions if they're uncorruptible, because it's not important what ideology they have or what they really want, because they can hardly implement any change anyway, because a president or a congressman or a senator isn't enough. You need a movement. You need to reform, if not revolutionary, change the whole goddamn system. But that said, it's better to get in as many honest, uncorrupted people as possible, and let them be a problem for the oligarchs, for the corporatism, for the globalist party, for the establishment. So, but Obama, he didn't even want to do anything. He was inheriting the mess of the Bush administration, the collapse of the economy. And what did he do? He rewarded the perps and punished the victims. The victims being the people, the perps being Wall Street and the bankers. And you see a guy like Trump, he hasn't even managed to build that wall, which was one of the big, and he pivoted on the foreign policy immediately, except for a few decent areas. Like I'll give him kudos for the North Korean thing. He was super attacked from the establishment at both sides, because like I said, maybe I said this off air actually, but there's only two parties. It's the elite establishment, corporacy, the oligarchs, and then there's the populists as the other party. So you find populism at both sides, of the people, for the people, against the corruption and the corpocracy. You find that no matter in any wing. And you'll also find the establishment henchmen in any wing. So it's not about left-right, it's about populism versus authoritarianism or neoliberal, neocon, or whatever you want to call it. So therefore, if a guy like Bernie came to power in America, I think that would be healthy, actually. Oh, but he's a socialist. Oh, he'll gonna. No. Even if he wanted to implement First off, he's not a socialist. In European terms, he's a centrist, actually. But let's say he got to power. He wouldn't be able to implement a fragment of what he wanted. Maybe not even Medicare for all. But it would be healthy for the system because you will get someone who's uncorrupted, who the establishment hate, just like Trump. In fact, I think they hate Bernie more than Trump. And he would be like, a delay, a clog in the machine of the Third World War, as you call it, the transformation that began in 2001. So same with Tulsi, same with Yang. That's why they try to suppress people like that, because they are not a part of the establishment. They're very different ideas. Like Yang, he could just as well have run on the Republican ticket or the Libertarian ticket. He just chose to go for the Democrat ticket. But it's not the ideas, it's not the solutions they are fighting. It's but it's the fact that he actually wants to implement it. It's not just like a rhetorics. It's actually something he wants to do. He's just a random, real person. He's not one of the actors out there. And so I think, no matter if you're on the left, on the right, on the center, whatever, find someone real, someone who's not controlled, and then vote for them. And the more of those people we get in, the better, because they will cooperate. For example, when it comes to war, it doesn't matter. They will, just like you see the establishment Democrats and establishment Republicans are cooperating to implement the wars. In the same way you see the populist Democrats and the populist Republicans cooperate against the wars. So we have to realize that there are, we, the people, are on all sides of the equation. The problem is when people are sheep-herdled into this team thing, like it's a baseball camp, a baseball battle, like us against them. That's the big problem, because that's what they want, to divide and conquer. Oldest game since the dawn of mankind, to control the masses. And if we are going to survive this Third World War thing, then we have to wake up and realize we're trapped in a false dichotomy. How's that for a rant?
Well, the false dichotomy is once again central to what you referred to earlier regarding basic logical fallacies. The black and white thinking, it's a false dilemma is what it's called, either or. So either Pepsi or Coke, either Democrats or Republicans. There are no other choices. You're free.
Yeah.
You're free to go up and use these rigged electronic so-called voting machines that can be hacked in less than 30 seconds. But you're free to choose one or the other. So does that, I think it provides people with a bit of an endorphin release, really. And they really do. So many people think that that their vote counts, I suppose, and that how could it possibly be how could it be hacked or hijacked, or how could the system be rigged? Thank God people such as Tulsi are speaking out. I've heard her recently a little more, one of the few people, although Trump did hit on it as well too, on at least one recent occasion. So Rand Paul, I believe, let's not forget him discuss and address the whole matter of this rigged electronic so-called voting system, which is just a total sham, a total fraud, and something that your guest Bob Fitrakis, that he went into.
I mean,
was great.
They think it's a conspiracy, but it's been in the court cases. It's been in university studies. It's like you can't document it anymore better. It's not possible. It's proven.
But you said it's not a conspiracy? What do you mean? How could it not be?
No, I mean in a derogatory. Oh, it's a conspiracy theory that the elections are rigged. No, it's a matter of fact.
It's a conspiracy fact. Yeah.
It's even been leaked in WikiLeaks.
Yeah. Well,
Clinton rigged it against Bernie. But the thing is that let's say Tulsi. She, it's very easy. Who is the media censoring or attacking all the time? That's enough. If you see the media, the mainstream media, and why does the mainstream media attack them? Because the mainstream media works for the same interests that are threatened by their stance. And so that's how you know it's a sincere politician. They're not taking bribes, super PACs, or corporate donations. If they do, never vote for them, because it means they are not just financed, they're working for them. So, and you'll find them on all sides. It's not just progressive Democrats. Like Buddy Roemer, for example, he ran the same race as Ron Paul. He ran on not being corrupted. So you'll find that anywhere, but unfortunately still the minority. Most of the politicians are megalomaniacs, narcissists, some are even psychopaths, and just careerists, you know. So I'm not saying like, for example, someone said something about Yang here. What was it? That it's a fraud. Well, you don't have to agree with the policy of Yang, but the point is he's a real person. It's much better to get in a person who's real, but whose ideology or policy you're not fully on board with, than getting in someone who actually works for the corpocracy but gives you the rhetorics that you think you agree with. Because they will never implement those things anyway. And those who you don't agree with fully, well, if they even manage to implement something, let's say Yang, maybe, just maybe he can implement the, what you call it in English, citizen dividend, something like that.
Referendum?
Maybe he could.
Citizen?
No. His main policy is like everybody's going to get $1,000. I forgot what it's called in English.
Dividend
he calls it the
might make sense.
Freedom
sure.
dividend.
Yeah,
freedom dividend. So maybe he could implement that, but like it won't be a huge revolution in the system. But if someone who's real occupy the presidency, it's going to give them so much problems. That's why they go against Trump too, because even though Trump goes along with them on many things, it's not good enough for them. They need someone who can do their bidding. It's going to be very problematic. And Trump is, he's also put in his people in central positions for the deep state. And that's the problem, right? They want to keep control of those things. So it doesn't matter. It's better you get an honest politician in than someone who fits your bill ideologically or policy-wise. Because, like I said, there's even a university study showing that no policy of the people has been implemented since, I think, 76. Only the policies of the owners, of the rulers, of the oligarchs. So it doesn't matter what they campaign on, people. They all work, they're all bribed, they all work for the man.
Episode number 168 of Pirate Radio Podcast with our feature guest of the week, live from out of Norway. It's an early morning start for him, shortly after 6 a.m. in the morning from the looks of things here. Al B., host of the Forum Borealis podcast, and I'm not sure there's a wider enterprise and project. It's a little broader in scope than just that from my take on things. But yes, I am, in case you are wondering as well too, your host is always the Robin Hood's Chief Communications Officer, Jaffe Ryder. So just looking out over what we have taking place here via the social media sphere, and a lot of activity. There's no doubt about that. So thank you very much for people with your engagement to this level. The number of comments coming into us here via YouTube is one great place, of course. And I'm not sure, once again, Al, if you're able to see what's actually occurring over there on YouTube. But we do have the likes of, and let's not forget, over on D Live, Svetlana Savinkov, just getting around to giving you a shout out. Thank you very much, Svetlana. You were the lucky recipient of our most recent booty chest unleashing, the crypto credit there that we managed to provide you with via D Live. So not sure what to make of it exactly, but apparently it is useful for something. We'll get our heads wrapped around that here eventually, hopefully before Christmas. But let's see. John Armstrong saying, great show tonight. Very much enjoying himself from the looks of things there. And Yang won't be allowed to win. So, Tulsi, once again, her and Yang being both shut out of the most recent nationally televised debate. I think it's sponsored by CNN, if I'm not mistaken. They're going to be running things. And here's the thing, a recent straw poll, I'm not sure if this is something I already mentioned or that we hit on prior to going live here, but she did pick up 20% in a recent, I think it was called like Monkey Survey straw poll. I'd have to check that. But this is just news that came across our desk here just a few short hours ago. Do you have a and they're still shutting her out of the process. So that's really quite telling, quite sad. And it's really, you're right about the oligarchs and the threat that she represents, even though she is herself a CFR member, something we don't hear much about, but it apparently is indeed the case.
I'm going to clear that up.
Nobody presses her on this whole business either, which is, to me, is they're falling down on the job. They're completely falling down on the job as far as journalism is concerned.
No, she's been confronted with that, and I know the explanation for that because Cliff Hyde alerted me to it. Cliff said she would be a great candidate if it wasn't for the fact that she was CFR. But here's what people miss. She was the golden girl back in the day, before the 16 presidential race. And she was, she fit the bill. She was a war hero, everything, right? So she was supposed to be like the big... Clinton wanted her to be like her golden girl that she could hide behind. The problem was she was honest and decent, but she didn't know too much about the dirty mechanisms of politics. So she got a big position in the Democrat Party. Her career was in the military. And then she saw, she went into it because she cared about her fallen comrades. And then she saw the corruption firsthand, and she was disgusted. And so she blew the whistle in the middle of the race. She went out and supported Bernie against Clinton. That's why Clinton, that's not just the only reason, but that's why when Hillary started to hate her. And she had to step down. And she also supported the exposition of the rigging. But here's the thing: she was CFR in the beginning because foreign policy is her passion, right? So she got into those positions through her DNC position back then. So all this was before she had her awakening, so to speak. I mean, she's had, of course, it's not like she was corrupt and then she had an awakening. It's more like she was naive in terms of macro politics, and then she had that kind of awakening. The first awakening was on the battlefield, of course. She's a medic, right? So she had to put together the poor comrades. So it's an old thing, the CFR thing, and she hasn't renewed that position. So I don't use it against her as a think tank, and she's been open with it. She's the one who exposed that she was there, actually. And she's also talked about it because she's been asked about it. She said what she said. She believed she could put her values into those circles. Of course, that's hopelessly naive, but it is what it is. I don't use that against her. But whoever said that Yang won't be allowed, I totally agree. Same with Tulsi. Now, the problem is that if Tulsi or Yang was to win the Democratic race, be the Democratic nominee, they would have a big problem because they are young and vibrant. But I think Bernie will win it. And I think that will be easy for them to solve because he had a heart attack. In fact, I think let's do a little speculation. Let's enter conspiracy territory. I think maybe the heart attack was the first attempt to take him down. Because did you see what the campaign did?
No idea. No, I did hear about the heart attack.
I'll tell you.
Though, yes.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't actually even a heart attack, but it was something that can be triggered by, today they have super many means to take you down. And if you're old, even easier. So they kept quiet about which hospital. Nobody knew where he went, and he didn't go under his own name. And the media, of course, bitched about that because they want to set up camp right outside the hospital and have a 24-hour hysteria about it, right? So they couldn't do it because they kept quiet about it. That doesn't have to be suspicious, but it could be. You know what I'm saying? And if he should win, they will take him down. In fact, I think they will prefer Donald Trump to Bernie because they're not sure Bernie would play ball when it comes. He would certainly not play ball when it comes to give billions of dollars in tax exempt to the oligarchs. But more importantly, he may not be on board with their foreign policy, the wars, and he would certainly not support the increase of the Pentagon budget, which unfortunately Trump did. Not just Trump, everybody. The Democrats even gave them more than Trump asked. So they raised, not just did they continue the insane amount of money going to military spending, but they, doubled and tripled it. And there's no goddamn reason except the reason that we've touched upon in our show with Michael Schratt, which is, you can say it.
Well, you're talking about like black budget type
Yes.
matters and affairs, of course. The areas where it's just a total black hole, endless to the tune of countless trillions. I think I'm not sure. I'm assuming Catherine Austin Fitts herself goes that far in pointing out that there is just endless amounts of money which has been totally unaccounted for. So it's leaving people such as ourselves asking where did this all go exactly? Where is it now? What ends has it been put towards? Who authorized this? And is there going to be any accountability along the way? And if those who seek to bring about more accountability, are they themselves going to be running up against any obstacles or finding any pushback on the part of the Kraken?
Never will there be any accountability as long as people keep voting for politicians who are on the payroll of the multinational corporations.
Well, look, and Al, also remember what your guest, what he talked about, Dr. Bob, I think he's a doctor, PhD. I'm not going to get the name right
professor,
again.
Tenured professor even.
Fitricus?
Yeah, Bob Fitricus.
Yeah.
Excellent interview,
well,
yet only one of our
about an hour. It was an hour in length. Yeah, it was short, wasn't it?
No, yeah, but not many people have listened to it. What, 7,000, something like that? It's a combination of the algorithm trying to crush it and a combination of people blatantly not being interested in that kind of topic. They rather hear about, gray aliens.
Well, here's the thing as well, and that's a great point that should be taken into consideration. At the same time, proportional representation was what I was going to say, quite simply. That is the catchphrase, the term that people need to investigate, to look into, and that we need to work on bringing about, not only in America, but in Canada as well, too, where both systems operate under this first person, pass the post, single member plurality system. It's a fraud. So many votes within each constituency typically end up being completely thrown out of the equation altogether, into the trash can, essentially. So, and disregarded. And there's a lot to be said for the referenda system, as well as gerrymandering too. Let's not forget. My God, where do you not find this, Bob? Once again, discussed.
Yeah, but that's open.
But
the really worst thing is the machines. In Europe, actually in most of the world, what we do is that we have paper ballots, and they are checked and controlled by all parties, not just the big ones.
Hand counted?
Everyone.
Are they hand counted?
Hand counted with a trail, can be verified, blah, blah, blah. It's very hard to cheat under those circumstances. But in American system, not only is the machines with that, just an 11-year-old just hacked one of the machines. Not only are these fishy machines controlled by private companies, there's more scrutiny into gambling machines in Las Vegas than there is to voting machines, and more regulations and control. But not only the machines, but without a trail, without checks and balances.
Al, let me ask you this.
Was there not... Debbie Wasserman Schultz, that we can curse here, right?
Well, you got one complimentary F-bomb. Yeah, and after that, it's $10 to the swear jar.
The C-bomb. She's a goddamn cunt, okay? And she was Clinton's right hand, left hand, whatever. She's a Clintonite, just like Kamala Harris. And she... she was booed out of she was trying to hold a speech she was the one main rigger of the Bernie thing. So the populist wing of the Democrat Party booed her, so she couldn't speak. She almost lost her seat in Florida or wherever to a very interesting chap who's have election fraud as on the agenda. But you know how she hold on to the seat? She cheated, blatantly cheated, just like she did on behalf of Clinton. And this was even proven. And who protected her? The Republican governor or whatever, like one of those, not the senator, I think it was governor. And why? Why would, here all Republican, we hate Clinton and Schultz, and he's an excellent situation. It was proven. It was deemed in court. So why didn't they jump on that and thank her? Because they work for the same people as Wasserman Schultz. This is how it works. It's not Republicans versus Democrats. It's the corporatists in both parties versus the populists. With populists, I mean, free people, just like if you and me try to become politicians. That's how it works. That's how corrupt and rotten the system is. Anyway, I'm going off on tangents here. Sorry. Let's move on.
And I'm having some trouble connecting to Twitter here for whatever reason. I'm not sure what this is. It'll be something that I want to keep listeners updated on. However, along with the fact that we could get more into this whole business of social media, but before we do that, let's just keep our sights on what we're discussing here within the political realm, and that your show in particular that you did with Dr. Bob, that one of the points he made, it was fascinating. Did he not say that there was a competitor who produced an open source, they created this open source code for voting machines to run off of, and then they died quite shortly after that, and the whole thing just disappeared? Do you remember him talking about that? Because right now it's proprietary. It's proprietary code, and that is just that's not workable. It's a total fraud. There's open sourced, however. I mean, he was a big.
And what's up with giving Google, Twitter, YouTube all that power over free speech and people? Do you see what Tulsi did? She actually had the balls, because that girl has balls, man. More balls than most of the men. She actually sued Google. Oh my God, I really hope she wins. I hope she crushes them. Of course, they can pay. But Amazon, Google, YouTube, all these people, they have so much money that it doesn't even matter. But they have all the power. It should be regulated. I think a solution could be that it should be public utility, because then they have to keep hands off. It's like in the old days, the phone company couldn't interfere with what's being talked about on the phone, right? They just provide a service, a network, like a road. Even you can't stop no green cars on this road, right? You can't interfere with a service like that. So if you're going to accept monopoly, in fact, I agree with the Ron Paul solution, which is antitrust. Break the bastards up. But if you don't, if you give them all this power, this monopoly, and milk our money, at least make it by law so that they can't touch it. But they're not even doing that. They are leaving to these multinational corporations to, and that's why you know, I've been bitching about how they are taking over internet. One of your colleagues, one of your shipmates, said to me before we started that Rockefeller said that they had a big regret of giving the internet to the people, and he's totally right, because if it wasn't for internet, we would be in the even more dark ages now. But as soon as they woke up to the fact that internet actually is taking over, and the reason it's taking over, obviously, is because it's freedom. It's people saw what they were missing in cable and radio, all that stuff, newspapers. That's dying because people withdraw their interest from it. New generations didn't care about it. It's just old timers that keeps it going. So what do the mainstream do? They go into platforms like YouTube and take it over. That's why we experience crackdown of independent media, shadow banning, unsubscribing people from channels like mine and subscribing them to mainstream channels, because they don't play fair. Even if they have all the money and all the power, they change the rules, they manipulate the rules. They're really, you know, these are despicable forces we're dealing with. So they try everything and anything to crush the awakening. So the only thing we can do is to keep focused on these things and alert our fellow brothers and sisters to what's going on. And I believe that's what you're doing with your show. That's what I'm trying to do with mine.
That is essentially the one of the guiding philosophies. Absolutely, how people choose to present themselves once they are here and engaged is up to them. It's more just a case of seeing that we have a platform in place where people are made welcome and allowed to have their voice freely heard. No bars, no restrictions, no prohibitions, other than, you know, it's the same the way we conduct ourselves throughout all social media in helping to moderate groups over, for example, on minds.com and elsewhere. Just, you know, lay off. We don't want to hear any death threats directed towards anyone, nor pro-child, like pedophilia kind of stuff. That's about all I've really managed to come up with over the years, frankly. Maybe I'm not too, I don't know. What more else would you restrict, or do you think ought to be banned?
Jeez, the pedophilia thing. Wow, I never thought we will see that crack in the public.
Well, they're going to the whole push right now with these so-called regressives is what they really are. The drag queen, those reading with, for the kids down at the public library and getting up and putting on a show, shaking your ass in the face.
Catherine Fitz. Yeah, you mentioned her earlier. Yeah, uh-huh. She was both
She's not a drag queen herself, is she?
No, she was the energy commissioner. No, housing commissioner.
Right.
And she was
under
also
the Bush administration, Bush Senior, Skull and Bones 41.
And yeah, but she was also the secretary to housing. But she's been talking about this forever. In fact, she also talked about it when I interviewed her. And I actually put that segment wasn't put in the main show. It was put in the behind the scenes show. But I knew about these allegations, of course, and we all know about in Britain, right? The people connected to the royal family being outed as pedophiles, and this what's his face, very famous musician or something.
Pete Townsend from the Who.
No. He was like a DJ.
Gary Glitter. Well, there's Gary Glitter, but also Jimmy Savile.
Yeah, I think it was Seville.
Yeah.
So I knew about those things, but then before the Epstein thing, I watched of everything. I watched Dr. Phil. You know Dr. Phil, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and he has kind of his own power because he's so big. He's like Oprah in a way, and so his team had tracked down a girl. And you should really, I mean, I had a really hard time finding this show. It's like it's dropped everywhere. Like I mean, even I never watched the official stuff, like on TV and stuff. I find everything for free online. But even on the usual places, it's just vanished, the show. Very hard to get it. I managed eventually. And it's mind-blowing stuff because his guest, they managed to track down a girl who was more or less a slave her whole life of these elite circles, international oligarch circles. And she told incredible things, like they're breeding people. The breeding. They don't have to kidnap and abduct innocent people. They use children, and they're really, talk about psychopathy.
Well,
like I said, we're going to...
Yeah, and I think I know the story, the interview you're talking about, and I'm sure that listeners out there could track it down in just a few short moments.
And she had an FBI agent with her to protect her at all times, even on the show. Well, and she was like crushed. She wasn't a normal human being.
Yeah.
She was like, she had been in intensive therapy with him and his team.
The way that she described things too, it was if she almost could have been one of Epstein's victims. She talked about being, as I recall...
I think it's bigger. I think it's even beyond... I think Epstein is connected to it, but I think he's a small player. That's my point. I think this is much bigger than people realize.
Oh, yeah.
Joseph Farrell has talked to me about some stuff in private about this too. And so the Epstein, why are they getting hysteric about the Epstein thing? Because it's like a loose thread. If you pull it, the whole goddamn fabric may unravel. You see what I mean? That's what they are afraid of. And I tried to get Whitney Webb. Is that her? One of the best people in the Epstein case is Whitney Webb. She's a goddamn superb, old school, although she's young, investigative journalist. And she's done really, most of the stuff out there, it comes from her. So I'm desperately trying to get her on. But like I said, it's very hard to get certain guests on. And when we are so stupid that we go in different areas, we do spirituality, we do politics, philosophy, everything, right? And those things often crash. So if you have, if we want a spiritual or a philosophic person on and they see a bunch of political issued shows, they get skeptical, don't want to go on. If we try to get some political people on, they see like this spiritual stuff or youth or whatever, and they get skeptical and want to go on. You see what I mean? That's another problem about getting on guests. But my point is, if I manage to get her on, I've been communicating with her, I'm going to do 2-3 hours and really pick her brain, because she ties all the dots together. It goes far back. Everything is connected to this. Iran-Contras, remember that old thing, Iran-Contras?
Oh, yeah, sure. The Franklin cover-up as well, too. Let's not forget the male prostitutes in the White House.
The deep state.
It's Hunter S. Thompson out of the Bohemian Grove, apparently taking part in these snuff films. I mean, these are the allegations. And we talked earlier about how it is to be targeted with false allegations, and nobody ever wants that, of course, if on the receiving end. But it's systemic. There's no doubt in my mind. I've realized that, believe that, and then realize that, frankly, come to the point of realization for years. The way that politics at the highest levels, in particular, in every country you can possibly imagine. Here in South Korea, I don't think it's much different, as well as the U.S., Canada, China, any place you want to name. And not only that, but the mafias. I like to talk about you got organized crime and all other forms of government, as I like to put it, involved in the entertainment industry. It's systemic
Yeah.
everywhere, like with
Hollywood.
music and the movie industry.
But honestly, don't you think Hollywood is creep city number one? I mean, how many girls? I think probably
Hollyweird.
50% of the actresses have to, indulge creepy males to get anywhere.
Yeah, hashtag Hollywood. And largely, it's interesting too, because I don't know when we're going to see affirmative action brought into place over there, or down, as some might say, in Hollywood, for the Gentile goy. It seems to be something which is largely dominated by, you could say, ethnic Jews, or is it their religion? I'm not sure, but
Is there such a thing as an ethnic Jew?
I have no idea.
They are Semites, which
are they?
Excuse
me. Did you just say Semites?
Yeah,
I know.
Why they
No. You're not. That's wrong. The Sephardic maybe, but the Ashkenazis, no bloody way.
No. Sephardic. No. The Mizraim tribe is Semitic.
Yeah, but those are minorities. Those are very. What percentage of overall the world's Jewish population do they make up? That's
the majority
small
in Middle East, but. No. Of course, the Ashkenazi, which are usually the people who are involved in the West, are, they are ethnically they are like other Europeans. There are certain things in the gene tests that I think they can track even this Ashkenazis. So. But it's not exclusive to the Judaism. I had a guest on, Tony Gosling. He really didn't like, we shouldn't talk about these people as Jews or, Islamists, radical Islamists as Muslims, or even same with the Christians, because these real Christians, real Jews, real Muslims can't be controlled by the corporocracy because they are more loyal to their philosophical ideas. But fanatical religious people, on the one hand, or fake religious people, neocons, they're not Christians. They don't have one Christian ideal in their policy. Yet that's what they pretend to be, right? These evangelists who support the wars, nothing to do with Christianity. They're fake Christians. So on the one hand, you have fake religious people, and on the other hand, you have fundamentalists. And we talked about psychopathy. Isn't it interesting that they found that psychopaths, they have a different kind of brain? Because, we talked about false dichotomies. It's not left against right, white against black, whatever, right? But there's really two tribes we can talk about. It's the elite and the masses, people, yes. But there's also another way to see it, and that's normal people and psychopaths. And psychopaths, they have problems with understanding metaphors. They can't do abstract thinking. That's actually a way to smoke out a psychopath. Very interesting when you come to spirituality, because deeper spirituality rests on your ability to understand abstract thinking and metaphors. So that's why they seek refuge. Stupid psychopaths, not the most intelligent ones, they tend to be atheists, but stupid psychopaths tend to become fundamentalists. They go into some religion, and literalists, because that's literal, that they can understand. You see what I mean?
Well, the psychopaths have no conscience, obviously. In fact, that's the thing with us as humans. The expression, how does it go? Follow your conscience. Let your conscience be your guide. Well, that's a bit of a problem when you are a psychopath, of course, because you could just imagine where that's going to lead you. Either you have no conscience, or it's so warped and completely rotten that it's going to end up causing all sorts of problems for not only your victims, but you yourself as well too. So when really you should be institutionalized and spend some time working through some pretty major therapy sessions. Now if you want to go back and stay on the psychopath topic, that's fine. There was something else I was going to bring up earlier. It's escaped my mind. We'll come back to that in just a second if we can manage it. With the psychopaths, so think about the political elite, these oligarchs, as you talk about, and that the the ruling class in any region of the world, and what it is that draws people to power, why they lust for power, why they're driven to wield power over others. There's something in people's, and the incestuous, the inbreeding through history as well too, which is something that the likes of David Icke and others have gone over quite extensively with their talks through the years. Of course, that is a big deal and something to definitely reflect upon. But yeah, we gotta without a conscience, things become. There's a big problem there, of course. So,
hey, can I give a quick shout out to a listener?
Well, yeah, absolutely. We're actually rapidly approaching. This is we're at the bottom of the hour here. If you want to really work through this, have this marathon 3-hour session.
Sure. And we should touch base with the commenters too soon.
Well, that's what we're doing that from time to time here. So yeah, go ahead.
This one goes out to you, Ube. Hurugi Nanya.
Okay, is that some sort of Norwegian insider joke, or that completely?
That's an insider. Hurugi Nanya. Yeah, that's insider.
Hurugi.
Let's move on.
Hey, how about this sweet? I'm not sure how adept you are, Swedish or not, but skål, of course. But Gomergoop and Gomerfit.
I promise you that's not Swedish.
Yeah, because my pronunciation is so terrible, I guess. Yeah. So anyways.
I don't even know what you're getting at. Skål, we say the same. That's
skål.
Cheers, right?
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Yeah, so how about, here's one for you. I can't miss with this one. Krona.
Yeah, krone. That's actually, you can't use that in Sweden anymore because those suckers went over to euro. The only country that still has krona is Norway. Maybe Sweden. No, I mean Iceland. But Norway use krona.
Well, but hang on. What does the word itself mean?
Oh, it's the name for the coin unit. It's actually the same. It means crown. Actually.
Yeah,
it's what the king has.
Exactly.
On the
do you know what? Hey, do you know what this? You'll like where we're going. We'll go with this segment to our conversation. Let's remind people this is episode number 168 of Pirate Radio Podcasts. I'm your host, as always, the Robin Hood's Chief Communications Officer, Jaffe Ryder. We do have Al B here joining us out of Norway this morning. For him, as a matter of fact, we're rapidly approaching, I believe, approximately the 7 a.m. mark there via Svalbard. Here in South Korea, of course, it's 2:45 in the afternoon, and we're about halfway through things here, I guess. Al had requested a 3-hour length conversation. It's a little out of the ordinary for us, but yeah. Okay, hang on. One more time there, Al. Actually, I've got you're vaping there from time to time. So, and if we can cover it from this end too. Believe it or not, it's just that it adds a little more to what we have to manage. But anyways, here in South Korea, the word for crown is wang. That's king. Wang quan. Crown, right. Crown, krona. There's so much that is going on here that most people have no idea about, that I have discovered and seen clearly with the linguistics, the etymology to so many words, including I mean, you could just call it a coincidence, of course, but for example, the word many is mani or manta. That's the Korean, many. Interesting connection there if you listen and try to pronounce it the way our mouth, the way we enunciate, of course. But wanhada is the Korean wanhada. These are not new words either. Go is ga, and that's the same in Sanskrit too, interestingly enough. For some people, well, presumably a few out there listening, most are not familiar with that. An, the an, like anti, is the negation. And Sanskrit as well too. It's the same, an. In Sanskrit, you see gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhisvaha. That is the utterance, the phrase that is used in the Heart Sutra, dealing with death is part of it, from what I understand. But the word simply, it's gate, G-A-T-E, going, gate, going through the gate. So that's something worth reflecting on. The point here, really, what I'm getting at is that I do highly suspect, and I think this is kind of this falls into your area of interest, Al, that the ancient times, the use of the Silk Roads with the commerce and the trade and the travel that occurred here, as far as connecting. I mean, here's another link. I'll try to track this down when I manage to catch a break here, and that you can find a crown in Afghanistan, ancient crown, which is identical to what we find here in South Korea, which is about, I think it's about the 5th or 6th century, actually part of the Baekje kingdom, and the way that it is produced and appears is it's strikingly similar, to the point where scholars, investigators, archaeologists, and so forth, people who are experts in this field, have said that there's something definitely going on. What else? There's more that's interesting too, and something that might have contributed to this linguistic exchange and influence back and forth between the various regions, in that there is a kingdom in Korea right on the southern tip, in the central southern tip of Korea, starting around the time of Christ, as a matter of fact. It's called the Gaya. Like in India, we hear Bodh Gaya. So is that another coincidence? I don't know, but it's especially interesting to note when we find that the original founding king, Kim Sudowang, married not a Korean, but an Indian princess, supposedly. That's how the story,
I
the
would
legend.
do the same in his shoes.
Pardon me?
I would do the same in his shoes.
Marry an Indian princess?
I saw a South Korean Miss competition thing. The faces of they all looked like clones. It was crazy. And why? Because they all took the same operation. Like there's some surgical operations that's very popular among Koreans. And they all look like 12-year-old girls, children. It's amazing. No, I'd rather go for an Indian princess, honestly. But that's my taste. I'm not putting anyone down. People have different tastes, but I wouldn't want to marry a child.
Well, you're exactly right, and that is so much the going thing here in South Korea. Celebrities in particular, with the plastic surgery, it's a big deal, and very superficial. Unfortunately, the whole industry with modeling and the celebrity, the fame industry, as it were, and the way that they're expected to appear a certain way, and bright, shiny teeth, this smiling, wonderful, cheery faces.
Everybody looked identical.
Yeah,
it was
that's right.
Amazing.
Yeah, and
they looked like siblings.
Yeah, no, there's
twins.
Yeah, so I don't know if it was that bad back in the day, but definitely there is real people who do believe that with the arrival of the princess, scholars typically they'll tell you that Buddhism did not make its way into Korea until around the 3rd or 4th century. I don't buy that at all. I believe it came
you
with
said it,
the princess.
Silk Road. There were Buddhists around.
No, I said it regarding
the Silk Road.
No, the princess who came around the time of Christ. Her name was Ho Wang Ok, and this is 300 years prior to what most scholars tell you was the arrival of Buddhism. She came, I mean, Buddhism had been around for 500 years plus before she made it to South Korea, and presumably she came with an entourage. She didn't come by herself. She came from a place called Ayodhya, which if people look on the map, I believe is up in the north central Ganges region, right very close to, and this is why it all ties back to the name of the kingdom. Once again, people, so-called confederacy is what typically it's referred to. Gaia. Why was it called Gaia of all things? I believe it was named in honor of the princess. Was a good part of it. This was an international marriage, let's not forget. And with these sort of things, you're going to find business being conducted, just as what we found with Alexander the Great being pushed back out of India in the north west region. It was Ashoka, the Emperor Ashoka's grandfather, who I believe was central to shutting down Alexander and his troops. But following that time, this is about 200 years after the time of the Buddha, 300 approximate years before Christ, in this northwest region of India. And that from that time, there was a golden age, from what I can gather, which kicked off essentially. And it was, I believe, the start of what typically, although not many people once again know about this, we like to talk about it from time to time here, though, via the show. It was called Greco-Buddhism. And really, this is something that people will ask themselves, why is it, a lot of it goes back to the person of Jesus himself, believe it or not, and the so-called missing years, where some Christian scholars or what have you, pundits, commentators will say, well, yeah, or these are very fundamentalist types, of course. They'll say, well, yeah, the missing years, he was building houses with his dad the whole time there in Palestine. I like to say Palestine wherever I can versus Israel. So it's always Palestine. Because because I'm pro-Semitic. I'm very pro-Semitic. So I support the Palestinians.
They call it it's Philistine in the Bible.
But the missing years, and you can check out, I encourage people listening to check out the BBC documentary. It's a good starting point. Jesus was a Buddhist monk. There's another book written by Holger Kersten. If you can get your hands on it, good luck. He'd be a great guest to have on either of our shows. Holger
I think
Kersten.
So. What's the title?
Jesus lived in India. Get a hold of him. If I think he's still alive.
I bought that book in India, actually.
Right. Oh, excellent.
On the street of India. But there's a better one. It's called, it's done by the former cultural minister of Kashmir. Before that.
Well, yes, because they believe the tomb of Christ, they say, is in Kashmir.
I think it's called In Search of the Historical Jesus or something. But you missed a point I made, and that's, you mentioned the Silk Road. This people don't know because the gatekeeper academicians don't say these things, and many of them are probably they're downplaying it if they're even aware of it. And that's the fact that there's always been huge connections all across the globe. Our hero, Thor Heyerdahl, he proved it with these ships, that because there was a dogma, they couldn't get from there to there. And then he went into these primitive ships and showed that, no, you can do it. But the Silk Road brought not just Judaism, Christianity to the east, and Islam for that matter. It also brought Eastern stuff west. So there were like Buddhists around at Jesus' time in the Middle East. Most certainly Jesus would have encountered them, because what little we know about the historical Jesus is that he was interested in exploring different philosophical stuff. Like, for sure he was a scene, but he also seems to have been initiated into a very interesting sect, a Judaic Pythagorean sect called the Therapeutics. And so we also know from the stuff in the Bible that's not censored, that made it to the Bible, or I should rather say that was not put out of the Bible, that he, from a young age, argued with, the philosophers and the enlightened and the priests, etc., of his time. So if he was interested in ideas at his in his life, where he lived and where he traveled, he went to Egypt too, then for sure he would have encountered Buddhists. And not also that, but it seems that there are some documentation that he survived the crucifixion. In fact, the whole crucifixion thing was a ritual, but that he went eastwards, where the Thomas Church went, and his tomb is actually in Kashmir. I couldn't visit it because Kashmir is a hot zone, but you can read about that in some of these books too. So if Jesus didn't die from crucifixion, if he survived it and went eastwards, then for sure he would encounter Swamis and Buddhists and yogis and all that stuff. So this isn't contested. I mean, we know that, it wasn't just commodities that went with the Silk Roads. It was obviously people and ideas too, and often missionaries and whatnot. Buddhist monks of Alexandria, Free Cosmos says here in the chat.
Sorry, Buddhist monks of what exactly?
Do you see the chat?
Well, not right now.
There's different chats.
No.
In the YouTube chat, Free Cosmos says Buddhist monks at Alexandria, and he's right.
Oh, yes, and absolutely, and I can provide more information on that later. I encourage everyone to investigate this area, this realm of conversation, the Therapeutae, indeed. And isn't it interesting how strikingly similar that name is to the Therapeutae, to the elder Buddhist sect, the first one that ever existed, the Theravadin.
I didn't take it. Yeah, Theravada. Yeah, good
right.
point.
Yeah,
and there was this enlightened ruler.
Therapy, providing therapy to the people. They were the healers. Yeah. They were the wise people.
Yeah, they were dressing in white because they got that from Pythagoras. The Pythagoreans were dressing in white, and that's why does health workers today dress in white? It comes from there, because that was their ritual garments. They were going to be pure. White reflects everything, unlike black that absorbs everything. So their thinking was, if we dress in white, we will be untouched by the surroundings. So this was like a ritual garment. And yeah, they had these healing houses in ancient Greek where they played harp and attended the sick and the dying. They tried to give a smooth transition into the afterworld. And all this was kept by when the arts of healing became, separated from spirituality, from religion. They still had these, like the symbol of healers is the staff of Asclepius or whatever.
Correct. Yes.
Looks like Hermes stuff, right?
The two snakes winding themselves around the rod of Hermes.
It's actually the one snake. The two snakes is Hermes.
Okay.
So that's wrong. Some use it, but it's erratic.
And let's not forget Hermes. Who is Hermes? He's Thoth in another incarnation, in the Egyptian, I guess, and in Rome he's Mercury.
Mm-hmm. So he has another function. His function is a psychopomp. His function is not as a healer. His function is a psychopomp. But in your neck of the woods, Jaffe, there was this empire. I forgot precisely where or what it was called. I have to look it up. Had this enlightened ruler, and he couldn't decide. I mean, I think he was Muslim by birth or by heritage, but he invited the wise men of all religions, Buddhists, Christians, anything, to his court. And it was like a booming cultural center. Many books were written and, stuff was great. And it's interesting too, you've heard about the Khazars, right?
obviously, yeah, of course, yeah, sure.
So the Khazars were an interesting group in the Caucasian area because they were kind of traditionally they were a warrior tribe, and they didn't want to give up their ways, but they had to because they were surrounded by monotheism. There was Islam, there was Christianity, there was actually they were surrounded by Islam and Christianity, and they were forced to pick a religion of the book, or so the story goes. They had to become monotheists, because they were converting all pagans, and so they practically found, okay, which one should we convert to here, so they will leave us alone. And then they found, hey, what about Judaism? Because there's no Jews here, so we can be, our own master in our own house. So they practically chose Judaism. And a conspiracy theory says that this is the origin to the Ashkenazi.
Yeah, they were 8th, 9th century religious converts, exactly for the reason that you've laid out there. That's how the story goes. The Khazar conversion, and I'm not sure what they were. Were they Muslim originally? But it was all politics. It was all politics.
They were pagans. That's the thing. Okay. So they had to choose. The reason they chose Judaism is that's off the book, as they say. The Abrahamic religions are all the same. Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and the fourth is the one in Iran. What's it called?
Zoroastrianism?
No, that's pagan. That's older. No, it's a newer one after Islam. I just blank on it right now. It's just 200 years old or something.
Oh,
originated in Iran.
Baha'i.
Yeah, Baha'i. So those four are closely related. They are what we call the Abrahamic religions, monotheism. And so they had to choose one of the three. Baha'i obviously wasn't around, right? So, okay, we choose Judaism because that's far away. So we are, we can still be masters in our own house. I love that small peculiarity in history. Otherwise, they would have to be subservient to the Russians or the Ottomans, right? Which were the big
Yes. They were caught in it was between a rock and a hard place there. It was a real tough spot, and they had to strategically decide which way they were going to go, what religion they were going to adopt, and it was for protection and prosperity, ultimately, sake, really. So they just had as anyone would, their best interests in mind. Yeah. Once again, people who are listening, if you're wondering, this is episode number 168 of Pirate Radio Podcasts. Our feature guest of the week is joining us live out of the early morning hours, Norway, around 7 a.m. in the morning presently.
Jesus.
2 hours at this point. That is correct. We've possibly got one more hour left here to carry along the conversation. It's something that Al had specifically requested. This is a little different than the way we normally do things. But in the meantime, let's remind people, check out WPRPN as well as WPRPN.com, along with all the show description notes that we have in place there via the YouTube link that is currently running. Unfortunately, DLive is not able to accommodate us on that front. Facebook, you can find the same material and information available to you. We do have this upcoming, of course, Operation Secret Santa campaign, which is going to be launching.
Yeah, but
here.
Before you go there, should we do some comments?
Well, yeah, but I want to finish just briefly here with this business of Christ and some people talking about, hey, he didn't even exist in the first place. You know what? I say to that, nonsense. There was some character. I don't think his name was Jesus necessarily. That's like a Greek.
Of course not.
That's a Greek
there's
take
no
on
Greek.
things. But
Joshua,
Yeshua.
Yeah, Yahushua Ben Yusuf.
Well,
but the thing is, it may have been Mariam, because Joseph was his father and Mary his mother, but they have different rules in Aramaic of who they hail from. So it's either Yehoshua or Joshua ben Yusuf or Yehoshua bin Mariam.
Okay, regardless of what his name actually was, I think and that is important to go there and research that as well. There is some speculation his actual father was a Roman soldier, and that Joseph really had nothing to do with the so-called miracle birth of the child.
Hang on. You're saying that Joseph was a Roman soldier?
No.
Joseph the carpenter?
No.
Oh, you're saying Mary banged a Roman soldier.
She slept with the Romans. That's one version of the events, and that he was the real father and her partner in helping to produce this miracle birth. But really, because Joseph was, beyond his years, so, as the story goes, that's our general impression of things, right? So, but that aside, the larger issue here, and I don't want to belabor this point or go into it too much. It doesn't really warrant it, I don't think. But he did have a family, I do believe, and based on my research at least. And there's even some talk of the Piso. Yeah. The Piso conspiracy. Check that one out, folks, if you have not. And, of course, this is all part of the value-added content that we tend to bring to things here, why we encourage people to share our links, add comments wherever they can, get our URLs out there across social media as best you can, help our independent, underground, online, open-sourced endeavor here grow over time, and that is what we are doing. But
his brother was leading the first church, and you know who their enemies were?
That was the Sanhedrin.
Yeah, no, James, his brother James. After Jesus disappeared from the story.
James the Just.
Exactly, and the first church was headed by him, and they had a big enemy in Paul, or Saulus, who was a Roman soldier, who was actually a mercenary. His job was to kill Christians. But they were pretty smart because they realized, hey, instead of hunting down and killing these people and get all this backlash, why don't we just hijack the whole thing? So he allegedly had this awakening, as if a mercenary is spiritual. And he saw a cross in the sky. Yeah, probably the cross they used to crucify him with, because the symbol wasn't a cross. The symbol was the two fishes. So he hijacked the whole thing. He never met Jesus. And you know what James and the first Christians called him? They had a nickname for Paul.
What was that?
Paul the Liar. And this is the guy who Catholicism, and thereby most of modern Christianity except Gnosticism, is based upon. So it's based upon a mockery and a lie of the original thing. I'd love to be around to see the original church.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it.
That imitation is just a Roman plot to, Constantine sealed the deal. He wasn't even a Christian, but he realized, hey, we can use this movement for power. So they institutionalized the whole thing. It was completely against John Armstrong. One of the commenters says, I'm known as John the Just. Good for you, John. So so they used it as a very good power tool. And I think maybe Islam is even better tool for, you can dispute it, because the good thing with Christianity in terms of being exploited as a power controlling thing is that you can get all these people loyal to one leader or to a very centralized leadership. That you can't do in Islam, because Islam is per definition decentralized. They don't operate with popes, etc., right? Even though they try, they have some imitation stuff, but it's not supposed to. So in a way, Islam is poorer to use as a centralist tool to suppress. But on the other hand, Islam is very good to be exploited and abused as a mind control thing. So all these shadows the original religions are rarely as they end up. So these shadow versions we see today, and even as we speak, there is a purge in the Islamic world of the original Islam, of the traditional Islam. And instead of that, because the problem with the original Islam or the traditional Islam is that, there's a train, I can see a train outside my window, and for some reason the train has stopped. It never stops. That's weird.
Maybe they're wanting to.
Anyway, I was distracted.
So
I was just saying that Islam was they had some ideals that doesn't work if you want to control people. So they invent this Wahhabism. This strain is also known as Salafism, Takfiri. And they facilitate that on expense of traditional Islam. The same they do with Christianity and Judaism. You see in Judaism that the real Orthodox Jews, they are against the whole Israel thing, but they don't get a voice. They try to get this perverted version out there instead. And so they want to crush old Islam, and they want to replace it with this fanatism, because then they can have the perfect boogeyman, which they have spent a lot of time and energy facilitating manufacturing. And that's because all rulers need distraction among its people. It needs us to fear and hate something out there, whatever it is, so they don't have to, so we don't hate them. And it's the same reason, the neolibs in the West, they have tried to do the same with system critics, alternative media. Demonize it as, conspiracy or alt-right or whatever you want to call it. It's kind of the same mechanism. Look at them, oh boogeyman, oh dangerous. So it's the same mechanism in play. They just use it all over the board. And it's been done since the dawn of mankind. It's nothing new.
Yeah, they're endlessly exploiting religion for political gain and the means of control. The word government itself, let's not forget, it breaks down etymologically as mind control. The gubern mente, gubern to control, mente the mind. Here's another one for you, Al. I'm not sure if you're aware of this or not. Do you know what the term cyber actually means?
No, tell us. That's interesting.
Well, I'll give you a hint. Well, speaking of mind control, that's kind of why it did come to mind. It's a Greek term meaning to steer or to navigate. So here we are out in cyberspace ourselves, clicking on our mice, visiting websites, going here and there, engaging content, downloading, leaving comments, what have you. And really, we are as very much like navigators out on the high digital seas. That's the way that we tie things into our project, WPRPN, the World Pirate Radio Podcast Network. We feel it's a pretty good fit. That whole cyber angle really, for us in a big way, makes a lot of sense. So, but when it does come down to this mind control topic, we're big proponents of autonomy, obviously, and that we should be self-naming rather than relying on others to provide us with the answers. More, I guess, the Gnostic type tradition and approach, where the answer is within us rather than someplace out there, and so many of us do go looking for the answers someplace out there rather than, as Jesus did say, going back to the Bible and what he did have to offer. I do believe his teachings did get clouded, that he was a Buddha-type bodhisattva character, just as what the BBC documentary outlined, a Buddhist monk, 18 years missing where? And India is what a lot of people have talked about.
But the Gospel of Judas, man. Wow, that's interesting. Well, because that's finally out there.
Well, yeah, the Gospel of many things. Gospel of Thomas, I guess, is another. But
yeah, the Thomas thing, that's like you say, the more mystical Jesus, the introvert Jesus. But if you look at the Gospel of Judas, you get this very interesting perspective that Judas was not betraying Jesus. He was actually doing Jesus' bidding. He was the ultimate martyr, the ultimate sacrificed lamb, because he had to take on the role as the betrayer. He didn't want to do it, but he was forced to by Jesus. And I guess he didn't twist his arm, but he did what Jesus, his master, requested of him, his mentor requested of him. And so he would be scorned, forever. His name would be, akin to a quisling or whatever. And he was just the most loyal of his followers. Very interesting perspective there.
Yeah, I've heard the same story myself, so it is definitely something to think about, along with, let's not forget, Judas was said to have been the twin. There's that tradition, Judas the twin, who replaced Christ on the cross. I don't think either of them actually died. Christ was removed well before the crucifixion. There's also the belief that whoever, let's keep in mind with the resurrection, 3 days kept in a low profile pretty much, that he suddenly emerged after that the stone was rolled away from the cave, and there he came forth in all his glory and luster, however you want to put it, right? So that and Thomas couldn't believe that it was him, so that he was seemed to be okay. He was healed and doing fine. They sat down, him and his disciples, a number of them, and conversed, breaking bread, just as if everything was normal, really. And that what they did, though, at that point, as I recall, no scholar in this area, but correct me if I'm wrong, listeners, let's do your part in helping to set the record straight. Work on schooling me on these matters. They drew straws. They drew lots. For where would you be, essentially, who would go west, who would go east, north, and south. Very similar to what occurred back in the early days of the Buddhist tradition, where they did have people going out proselytizing, spreading the good news. I think the Dharma, Buddhist teachings, might have even been called the good news at that time as well too. But you look at
but not only did the main disciples all write their own account, like the Gospel of Mary, the Gospel of Philip. The Gospel of Philip, I think, is the one where they disclose that Thomas and Mary were privy, and Judas were all privy to stuff that the others weren't. But not only did all of them have their own gospel, obviously most of it didn't make it to the Bible, was redacted, but some has resurfaced in newer time. But also they made one common gospel that they were going to have in addition to the individual gospels, and that's called the I'm just directly translating it because mine is in Danish, which is almost the same as Norwegian, but we call it, if I'm directly translating it, it's the Gospel of the Holy 12, I think. I don't know if that's what they call it in English, actually, but probably something akin to that. So then you have that mutual gospel. I guess that's the bottom line of what they all could agree with. And then you have the individual gospels. And so so like you say, they spread in the church of Peter. Peter was Dick. He was in my view, he was kind of the Judas of them. So his church becomes the dominant, of course, always the worst, huh? And because that's the one that Paulus ran with, but the most interesting, I think, is the Thomas Church, which went east all the way to India and beyond, Kashmir.
Yeah, that's exactly the version of events I'm familiar with. So it's really quite something. Thomas the Twin. I'm sorry, did I say earlier Judas the Twin? It was Thomas, I believe Thomas the Twin. But Judas, there was
Didymus.
Thomas Didymus, that's correct, who figures prominently within the Gnostic tradition, from what I from what I understand. And that is that's somewhere where the fundamentalists just don't want people to go. You're going to lose your soul if you go there, of course. It's the Gnostic research and investigation. So there's so much going on in this area with respect to reincarnation and karma being taken out of the Bible, Second Ecumenical Council of Constantinople.
Yeah, but you know why? That's also interesting.
Because the Empress wanted it. Empress
not exactly.
Theodora. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. It was this bitch. It was his wife. He didn't care. But she was a horrible psychopath. It's not just today psychopaths are sent to power. So she didn't like the thought of karma and that you come back. So she pushed them to put that out of the Bible because then she could go on doing these bad deeds without having to face the consequences. It's kind of reminiscence of when the Chinese state, not long ago, a few years ago, banished reincarnation. They said it was forbidden to reincarnate. They even propped up their own Dalai Lama, the newborn candidate. So, I mean, it's hilarious to us, right? But that's how they think. And so the church fathers was not for this at all. They were against it. But back then, the church didn't have as much power. The church was basically a tool in the emperor's power. So what they did, instead of banishing it, they just quietly disowned it. But it was never officially. You can look in church history. It's nowhere to be found that you cannot believe in reincarnation as a Christian. And in fact, despite the redactions, you still find many, many, many references and what's it called? Allusions to reincarnation.
Well,
also in the Bible, that's even in the mouth of Jesus.
Sure. I mean, well, hello. What's all this talk of these born-again Christians about? I mean, why don't people get that? Are they that blind? Really? I guess so. Some can't see that, born again. And they try to spin it. They try to spin it, of course, saying, oh, well, you have to be born in the spirit and the blood of Christ now to save you for all of eternity. And there you go. The deal is sealed. But they don't stop to think about how sure, we can be born again every moment.
Yeah,
that's fine.
A concrete example. One of the disciples asks Jesus if he is, I forgot the name, some Jude. Earlier in the Bible, in the Old Testament, are you him who was said to come back?
Elijah.
Jesus denies. Jesus denies that he is him.
Elijah.
But he doesn't deny that it's possible to be him. You see what I mean? He doesn't scold him for, hey, what are you talking about coming back as another person? That's not possible. No. He just says, I believe, it's a long time since I read it, but I believe he disowned that he was him.
Yeah, because that was the most prominent view during that time, that reincarnation was a widespread belief that many people subscribed to. So it was predominant.
Nobody raised a brow from
that. Well,
and
look at it scientifically too, Al. That not just you reap what you sow out of the Bible, which is pretty straightforward, but in scientifically proven, although for thousands of years, of course, the Indian philosophers, sages, and so forth knew very much that this was the case. That's what they had speculated, at least. That was their wager based on, I guess, insight into the matter, having meditated for some time. But that for every action, there is a reaction of equal yet opposite effect. That is, I believe, straight out of Isaac Newton, I think, had a hand in that. The laws of motion, one of the laws of motion, either second, third, might even be the first. But that, and then, so that's karma covered. Karma. And that reincarnation, that energy is neither created nor destroyed, but rather simply finds itself endlessly changing form.
Transform,
and we're, the fact is,
nothing comes from nothing,
right?
And nothing goes away.
Right.
By the way, we've had 2 shows on reincarnation. One of them is super interesting because we interviewed a professor, Icelander, who's together with this American Dr. Stevenson, he's been doing research into children's memory of reincarnation. And it's much better to do that in cultures that still accept reincarnation. So he went among Druze in the Middle East and Hindus in India and Buddhists in Sri Lanka and even Icelanders, because they are very spiritual people. So that's interesting, to see what. Hey, why is Greta Thunberg's picture popping up in the feed you made for?
Oh, we got Greta on
Just because
board.
she's Swedish?
Oh, isn't that wonderful? We got her on board. Hey, talk about a major win. So yeah, go Greta, go Greta. You do your thing there, girl. Yeah. So
no, but so that's so interesting to see what children remember. Usually it's over when they're around 7, but it's super. So I encourage all parents out there, if you hear your child talk weird about, because many children do say the weirdest things when they're very little. Don't discourage it. Whatever you do, don't discourage it. Try to tape it. Try to get it on recording.
There is something very precious regarding our how it is that we experience our life as a child. We've all gone through it. And you're right on the mark. I would concur that, look at the way that children are targeted by Satanists, psychopaths, predators that are up to no good, that really want to hurt these innocent beings. And Christ talked about it once again, hearkening back to what he had to say, and that I think he did issue a pretty stern warning to be very careful in bringing harm to any children. That there would be repercussions, and that you should think twice about the implications involved. So, but I remember myself as a child. There was certain having an imaginary friend, I guess, as for some time at least, or just certain visions and things that would occur and appear, seeing certain spectral visions and so forth. And you're right with the way that the past life recollection and whatnot. But here's the thing for me, though, in this time in this form now where we are currently, that there's no reason for us. People talk about reincarnation. How could it possibly be? And really, it's quite simple. We're here right now, aren't we? What is there to say that we will not be again? It's pretty straightforward, if you ask me. What do you understand? It's
empirically too.
Right?
Ask anyone who doubts it.
Hello.
Ask anyone who doubts it. Yeah. Can you remember anything else than having been alive? Of course they can't, but then they say, no, but that's because they didn't exist. That's actually a logical fallacy. But okay, so you didn't exist when you were 3 days old? You can't remember anything. So the memory has nothing to do with, as an argument of not being alive, because you were alive when you were 3 days old. Still, you can't remember it. So we haven't known anything else than being alive. But here's the clue. Memory is the clue, because if you really want to control someone, forget about bondage, forget about manipulation or lies even. All you have to do is control someone's memory. If you can control someone's memory, you have full control over that person. In fact, if someone wakes up in your house and they don't know anything from up until then, you can make them think anything. And that's exactly what's going on in the world on a collective level. We are, our paradigm is the most important thing to control, because if they control the overtone window, so to speak, is a part of that, then they can get away with anything. That's why they can't even admit to such a basic concept as an Atlantis. Because if there was an Atlantis, that will raise all sorts of questions. It's a chain reaction, which will undermine the status quo, not just spiritually, even monetary, practically. So it's all about memory. It's all about paradigm, mind, what you're able to entertain of ideas. That's one of the things with my shows. I want to put out a lot of ideas. I don't necessarily believe them, or it's not like I'm spewing a missionary thing. I just want to put out a lot of ideas that people can explore, entertain. Maybe if not that idea in itself makes them realize something, maybe it leads to another idea that makes them realize something new. And it's always good. If you stop having realizations, you're practically dead. If you want to live a long and prosperous life, you have to keep your mind alive with new thoughts. Just try to think one new thought every day. It's a very old and good and healthy practice, but it's damn hard, actually. Thinking one new thought every day. Try that. It's very hard. It's not as easy as it sounds. But it's good. It's healthy for your creativity. Creativity is one of the best tools we have in life. It's going to keep you healthy. It's going to keep you young. It's going to keep you happy if you can have an outlet for your creativity. I don't care. It doesn't have to be like artsy-fartsy painting. You can be creative in almost any. You just making food can be a creative piece of work.
A form of meditation as well, too, meditative practice.
Exactly.
Anything we do, as a matter of fact, is said to be, I've had arguments, debates, however you want to frame it exactly, intellectual discussions and exchanges with certain friends, one in particular who insists that you can only meditate when you go and he's a big yoga kind of guy who's been to India numerous times and spent multiple occasions at the feet of his guru in that country, and you're only meditating, he claims, when you choose a time and decide to go sit down on your cushion and really focus on what is, on your out breath, I guess, for
That's
starters.
bullshit.
Well, I know it is, of course.
Meditate while you walk.
Yeah, it's like this is why this is so, for me, mentally exhausting, actually, when it comes right down to the live streaming, because I'm required to be so much in the zone, and I've got to be as a host as best I can, and it is quite edgy at times and raw, imperfect as much as I wish it wasn't, but that's just the way it goes. So you carry on and do your thing. But let me just say, we've only got a limited amount of time remaining here, about not quite half an hour or so, approximately. Just eyeballing things here from this end. But
should we let listeners in soon? I mean,
we've been doing that the whole time, man. Doing that.
We
the
haven't
whole time.
read.
Doing that, and you're free. You read is just carry along and converse and engage, interact with the comments that they're providing there via.
Yeah, but I was thinking we could pick some of their comments to discuss or air.
Yeah,
there was an interesting question earlier.
Well, but let me just hang on. You're free to do that, of course. We've got half an hour left here. I'd also like to touch on this mutual friend of ours in brief, and I'm happy to handle that just for fun. I know he's a regular listener, a fellow Norwegian, and someone that there's quite a history that you share with him, and for some strange cosmic reason, I cannot explain it beyond that I came into contact with him through the interwebs years ago and ended up befriending him in a virtual sense. A very likable, chatty fellow, never mean, spirited or anything along those lines. Very a lot of fun to chat with and talk to, and ended up ordering a set of books that he had while he was teaching ESL in Vietnam. He sent them here to me in good faith. We dealt with that transaction quite smoothly and very pleased to do that. He's back now in Norway, and I'm not sure if you want to provide any more details exactly, but a big shout out to, I'm presuming he's listening because he does tune into the shows that we do here on a semi-regular basis. Bjorn, if you are out there, very much appreciate your support over the years. You're someone who has sent me numerous emails, and really just all around decent, upstanding guy. But I'll leave that aside for now. What I was going to say, though, and you can choose to address whatever you like here along the way, Al. Menander the First, also known as King Melinda. Now, you were talking earlier about a king that was involved having to make a decision. He was an ancient, the Khazar and the Ashkenazi within the Khazarian tribe, or the region of the Caucasus, the Black Sea area of the world. And isn't it interesting to note where that word Caucasus and Caucasian, how those kind of are related, and to think about what is the actual history of people of who are essentially Caucasian. That's that's a whole area of conversation, investigation once again. But yeah, Menander, Melinda, he was the savior. Menander the Savior was what he was known as. And Pali sources, you might know about this, Al, Pali being the original, prior to Sanskrit, language that Buddhism found itself used within the writing of sutras and so forth. He was an Indo-Greek king of the Indo-Greek kingdom, just about 150 years after. Oh, I'm sorry, this is prior to Christ. How about that? Okay, I totally dropped the ball on that one. But isn't this something? Almost 150 years prior to Christ, who administered a large empire in the northwestern regions of the Indian subcontinent from his capital at Sagala. Now, people, if you are interested, look into this, because the King Melinda's questions and the chariot smile. I'll share this link here in the restream area and see what sort of response, if any, we get from the peanut gallery. But this is really important, because what we had here was an example of a Buddhist monk of sorts, a wanderer, ascetic, what have you, someone who really thought Buddhist teachings were right on the mark, and that he's basically managed to convince Melinda that it was worth adopting. So I thought that's what you were getting at earlier. Actually, as you recall, you ended up steering things off into this area of Khazaria, and
I always do.
Yeah, that's fine.
Driving with me is a bumpy ride, man.
Have you heard of Menander or Melinda? This king that you know about this guy? Do you?
Yeah. But one of our listeners, live listeners, because obviously this will be out there later for the big masses to tune in. But one of those who actually bother to tune in now, he says, I can't meditate worth shit. This is John saying this. I used to live in Santa Cruz, California for 30 plus years. People were meditating all around me and achieving enlightenment, quote unquote. I can't find it with a map. Just a quick comment to that. I used to run actually a meditation school, and this was the only one in Norway that had all the 7 meditation forms. Okay, I'm not talking about techniques. There's a million techniques. Hey, Jaffe, are you the one behind the handle Pirate Radio podcast?
That's probably Captain Long John Sinclair.
Oh, yeah. I didn't talk with him today.
You haven't met the captain.
But anyway, so I just want to tell John, just relax, man, because not all meditation forms are suitable for all character types. So the clue is to find the form that suits you. And that's why we had all the forms in my classes, because obviously there's different kind of people, right? And I'm used to that. Oh, I can't meditate. No, it's just that you didn't find. First, you need to identify the form that suits you. And then you just find one tool, one approach, one technique that within that form that works for you. And if I was your coach, we could have solved that in a day, actually. So it's not a big, the problem is people, what's meditation? Oh, they just find a random book, a random course, and they think, they know it, or this is it, right? No, it's just, it's like saying, internet doesn't work for me. I didn't find anything there that, no, internet is a big place, man. You have to identify why you want to go online, and then find the right place to go online, and then maybe tune into the right show, to use a bad metaphor. Now, as for the friend, my old friend, yeah, it's great that I suspected because I made a erratic association. You're located in Korea. He was in Vietnam. But in my, Western bias, that was kind of the same thing. So I guessed him, even though it was, a couple of countries removed. But yeah, I lost contact with this dude. So if you're listening, Mr. B, I have something to tell you. So please contact me. So that was a funny coincidence. And what else did you say there that I wanted to address?
Melinda, something, anything along those lines?
Melinda, I know Menander, but not Melinda.
Well,
no, I'll give you back the ball.
Oh no, that was his. Let's see, Menander was his Greek name, and then Melinda was his Indian name, something along those lines. So he was known by both, basically. But a really important king and an area to explore if people want to unravel this mystery, which works out in my calculation to be approximately, not quite 800 years of Greco Buddhism, which we hear so little of for some strange reason. It may be partly why. What we did find actually it wasn't until about the mid-19th century that Buddhism itself was rediscovered by the West, thanks to the British surveyors, engineers, and so forth that were active in the northern region of India. They came across temples that were buried in jungle for 1,000 years approximately, somewhere in just a ridiculous amount of time. They've been lost to history. And you want to talk age of apocalypse. The word itself, of course, simply means an unveiling, a revelation of sorts. So and myself being a long-time self-professed apocalyptimist, that I'm a major big time apocalyptimist. That go ahead.
Yeah, could I just
Sure.
hijack the thread
yeah.
again? Because John has a follow-up question. Define forms. So let me just briefly, quick crash course here. Techniques, just some techniques, and these are not forms. These are just tools, techniques, which represent several forms. Sometimes they can be like one form or another form, or they can be several forms actually in one. But I'll just give an example of a technique that could be mantra, intonation of sound, or also a keyword that has meaning. It can be seed thoughts, which is focused on an archetype, idea, symbol, mandala, etc. It can be listening meditation, you're focused on sound or music. It can be energy centers, like chakras, as I call it in the East, harmonizing, cleaning, or strengthening of that. It can be inner silence. It can be relaxation. It can be dynamic meditation, where focus is on movement, dance, wandering actions. It can be visualizations. It can be fantasy travels. It can be breath focus, on the respiration, different techniques there too, or self-observation. Often this is detachment, often called mindfulness. But these are just different examples of different techniques. The first thing, you have to find your goal, your target. You can say there's 4 basic goals. It's physical, which is better health, healing, prevention of illness, better what's it called, contentment, higher body consciousness. It can be emotional, better feeling life, healing of traumas and or other emotional poison, increased life. I'm trying to translate this in my head. Happiness, better contact with your feeling life. It can be mentally, deeper insights, calming down, train of thought, easing of negative thought patterns, peace of mind, clearer thinking. Buddhists are big on that. Or it can be transcendental. Not talking about forms, still talking about the goals, the main goals. Transcendental goals, stronger intuition, deliberate contact with your higher self, increased creativity, inspiration, enthusiasm, contact with your so-called life purpose or meaning of life, whatever. This would be more spiritual, right? So you will get more out of your paradigm because you can have any religion or not even be religious. I've even taught this to atheists. So, but the 7 forms, 1, focus on force or power or whatever you call it in English. We could call it energy meditation. 2, focus on the senses, sensoric meditation. 3, creative meditation, focus on creation. 4, center meditation, focus on the self. 5, focus on will, affirmation meditation. 6, focus on the mind or consciousness, contemplative meditation. Or 7, focus on unification, identification meditation. That's just very brief and superficial examples of the forms.
And that's that. So yeah, I guess let's just take a look at what's going on here. I thought we saw that there might have been a glitch here in the stream
Matrix.
Well, I'm looking for some reason. YouTube have they decided to shut us down here or cut us off? I'm not sure. It appeared. I really don't know. This is strange. On the one hand, it looks like we're streaming at the same time. It looks like the video on YouTube wants to tell us that it's ended. But yeah, we've got about 10 minutes left here, whatever the case may be, and just.
Talk about pirates? Talk about pirates?
Well, we've got actually Captain Long John
Corsairs?
Sinclair. Well, sure, pirates. I mean, how is it that you gained access to the Robin Hood in the first place back in the day? I don't even recall, and unfortunately, I didn't go back.
I had to suck the first mate's dick.
Oh, geez. That might have done it. That might have got you on board, I guess. Yeah, So there were pirates that did marry one another. They were pretty faggy. It's a pretty homo type.
Oh yeah, they accepted anything went.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like San Francisco in 1968 or something.
With a little bit of swordplay and brass knuckles aggression thrown into the mix.
Hey, I've seen the first season now of Black Sails.
Who told you about that?
You.
I presented that information to. So you just totally watched the series to this point, then, have you?
Yeah, I had to. Yeah. When it's out there,
if
it's good.
What are your thoughts?
Well, I think you're right. Excellent scenery, photographically very well. Okay, actors. Okay, script. I like that they try to give, not just a cliche, Pirates of the Caribbean. There's 2 things I don't like with the show, but, nothing is perfect, so it's not a big deal. One, they don't focus sufficiently on the spirituality. The Templars is a big part of the piracy thing. The second is it's very Caribbean-centric. There were pirates in the Indian Ocean, in the Mediterranean. In the Mediterranean, they were called corsairs. They were basically, many of them were Ottomans. There were pirates on the east coast of Africa, operating out of Madagascar. There were pirates all over the place, and they had free havens, anarchy states, all over the map, not just in the Caribbean. So this follows a specific pirate haven. At least season 1 did. But it would be cool to have to see the whole range, because there were many free cities like this where, there wasn't slaves, because people have no idea how suppressive society was. It was horrible. That's why people fled to America in the first place, right? So if I lived in that time, I probably seek shelter in one of these free towns. One of them were called, what was it called again? Liberatio or something, Libertatio. I think that was the one in Madagascar.
That's right. Yeah. In fact, I think there was a mythical pirate country that was talked about, but I don't think really ever existed. It was really quite off the charts the way that they're said to have operated, and there was a pirate king that that led the operation.
Barbarossa? No,
No,
Barbarossa was Ottoman.
yeah, he was
But
a
you know,
Muslim. Yeah, that's
there were
right.
different kind of pirates. You know, the Barbary pirates, the Corsairs, the Caribbean. They were different. Some pirates were Templars, Knights Templars. That's why they have the Jolly Roger. You know, the skull and the bones,
Well,
crossbones.
yeah, we're doing our best here to get to the bottom of things, such as the history. You know, it was known as the Jules Rouge, something along those lines from the French, and having to do with the red something or another. And I've been a little lost on the etymology, unfortunately, and the historical origins. But with the Templars, the missing fleet, I am endlessly perplexed and curious as to the history of the apparent missing Templar fleet. It is also interesting to note how, with that having said to have occurred, that around that time, that was shortly thereafter, we did find the rise of piracy in places such as the Caribbean over on the other side of the world. So very, very active. Brethren of the coast and so forth, right? Tortuga, Hispaniola, and so forth. Blackbeard, Sam Bellamy, this endless number of characters. Jack Rackham, of which we did find Charles Vane. I mean, who else did we find?
Yeah, but the interesting thing is Oak Island. And
right.
that involved several pirates too. For example, Captain Kidd.
I don't know about the connection Kidd to Oak Island. I've never heard that. What's the deal? What's the deal?
If you go back to maps, from I think the 1800s or 1700 maps, you actually see in the maps Captain Kidd's treasure or something axed out on Oak Island. It was known. It was like a meme of the day, 1700 meme. In fact, there were written novels that is so fascinating. Is it art imitating life? You have that with its Titanic. You have it with 9/11. You have it with many events in history. This just outlandish stuff in books before it happens. So there is this book. I think it's written as a comedy or as a I wish I could remember, some kind of joke,
satire.
Yeah, I don't know if satire was big back then, but it was in the 1800s about the so-called money pit and how they dig and there's nothing there, or something like that. But it follows the real what happened afterwards. It follows it closely, if you see what I mean, for those who are privy to what's going on in Oak Island. So anyway, now I went off a cul-de-sac here, but you're the host. You're supposed to steer us back.
That is correct. Absolutely. So I do my best to accomplish that very thing. We gotta wind things down here in just a moment or two. And I'm not sure. Had you had mentioned that you would even like to continue on with a premium exclusive underground
we can do
bootleg.
that. But let's give a shout out for the Christmas thing.
Well, you betcha. Operation Secret Santa. Keep that in mind. Before we do that, though, we've got Captain Long John Sinclair, is what it sounds like, believe it or not. And he's out there on Dead Man's Bluff. We're going to bring him into the conversation here in just a moment or two. It's been a while since we've actually heard from Captain Sinclair. I'm not sure where he's been all this time, but he's a busy guy, of course. Have you ever talked to him?
Yeah, briefly.
Oh, how did that go? You remember doing that, did you?
I have a hard time understanding his lingo, so I just indulge him.
He's a salty old sea dog. There's no doubt about that.
Exactly, and English is my primary language.
Pretty
so
scurvy type character. But let's see. Well, we'll put Operation Secret Santa, yes, indeed. And, of course, all of the comments that have been taking place here now across, from what we can tell, various outlets and social media platforms, YouTube, DLive, Facebook, somewhat so. and Twitter as well too, believe it or not. So, and also, of course, we do have almost as many as 18 people joining us here on YouTube, with a handful as well scattered out across those other pre-mentioned platforms too. So thanks to everyone who has joined us, of course. This has been a great time and a real epic marathon effort. I'm not sure, how's your energy level, by the way, as we
it's fine. It's fine.
steer the ship back into the harbor here this go around. But we'll talk about Operation Secret Santa in just a moment or two. In the meantime, let's see if we can get Captain Sinclair on the horn. So stand by.
Mm-hmm.
Captain Sinclair, do we have you?
Hi, Jeffy. I'm out here on Dead Man's Bluff. It's a pleasure that. Thank you very much, of course, for inviting me. It's really a welcome thing to.
Ahoy, matey. Ahoy, me hearties.
It's been a while now, hasn't it, Al? So very much appreciated, including the interest in Operation Secret Santa coming up here now. It's the 5th year, if you can believe that. I'm really hoping the best for Jaffe and the rest of the crew here are able to get the word out and really promote the charity end of things, because really that's what it's all about. There's nobody making any money here from this end of what you would expect pirates to be doing, but we're a rather generous lot in conjunction with the whole Robin Hood's philosophy and mandate.
Is that all you're going to say, Captain?
Well, that's about it for now. I don't know what more you want to say.
Quick question for you, Captain.
That's good, Captain Sinclair. Go.
What is it? What do you got in mind there?
Yeah. Hey, could you take down Barbarossa in a 1-to-1 fight?
I would believe Barbarossa would have to be very much on guard and ready for anything coming at him from out of the blue. There's no doubt about that.
Who's strongest, a Corsair or a Caribbean?
That's a $64,000 question, I suppose, isn't it? 64,000 doubloons. Corsair or Caribbean? I don't know. You just have to put them together and let them go at it. According to the ship's articles here, if there are any issues among crew members, we see to it that they make their way to land and work out the problems between themselves in whatever fashion they feel is appropriate. And it does include a little bit of sword play from time to time, or even the odd musket being drawn, whatever it takes to settle the score. Well, marooning is a last-ditch, final alternative, but we do not suffer fools gladly, nor tolerate any the double cross never goes over too well on the Robin Hood. Well, scurvy dogs, yeah, indeed. But the double cross and treachery, no time for that whatsoever. So any of that in the works, we find coming our way. Be on guard. There's no doubt. You have been warned.
You know what, Captain? It was so much better in the old days to be a pirate. Us modern pirates, we get no ventures. You had all the ventures, man.
Oh, you have no idea, do you?
I can only imagine.
Oh, you remember Blacksail, the Black Beard?
Yeah.
Oh, episode number 1, Blacksail's going to visit Blackbeard.
Oh yeah.
You have no idea.
So you're saying, Captain, you do manage to with the ladies, things go generally quite well?
Oh, I would say so indeed. Yes, it's
ladies
drinking and cavorting, and even in the age where I currently find myself, yes, indeed, women drawn to the I don't know, sometimes the captain's hat or whatever the case may be. It's what more can I say? I don't like to really brag too much about my conquests as they are, whether out on the high digital seas or behind closed doors.
That's good,
No.
Captain. That's good. Modest approach is always the best answer.
Yeah, I mean, we landlubbers wouldn't know the difference anyway, so.
But I do tell you, I must go now. I wish you all the best with Operation Sacred Santa. And to you too, Jaffe.
Thank you, Captain.
And
Yeah.
just keep up the good work. This has been really a great show. I've been listening here out up on the Dead Man's Bluff to the live stream. So all the best in 2020. I might be back again for the Christmas campaign. We'll just have to see. But thank you once again, Al, for dropping by. It's great to hear you're working on
Thank you.
patching things up there with your friend as well, too, B from Norway. It really sounds like an upstanding character. So...
Always great to reconnect with old friends. That's right.
Indeed. All the best and happy sailing.
Ditto.
Happy sailing, Captain. All right.
And yo ho ho.
Indeed. So, yeah, he's a bit of a card. There's no doubt about that. So, a bit of a cut up and a character.
You think you would give me a role on the ship?
Oh, yeah. If you're looking for that sort of thing. I know you asked about minds.com.
Yeah, maybe I could be the cook.
Well,
on the other hand, maybe you don't want to die of food poisoning.
I don't know what you want to cook, but we are looking for. We have an apothecary. We have a number of gunners. We have the chief of security, of course, and
maybe I could brew some alchemical.
The cook is a carpenter. Doctor. Well, we got the apothecary, but he's more the supplier of drugs, or if you prefer medicine. So, but anyways, Bjorn. Oh, I'm calling you Bjorn now. Al.
I could read the stars.
What do you mean? Oh,
you need someone to read.
Yes. Well, we do a navigator of sorts. He hasn't been around much lately, so whatever you like, just come up with a title, and we'll slot you in there and get you added to the main Pirate Radio Network homepage over on minds.com and wherever else we can, of course, too. There is if you notice off of WPRPN, it says members info. There is below that. You click on and go to member sites as well as the Robin Hood's crew. So that's just at the top area of your screen. Drop-down menu approach way of doing things there. So pretty straightforward. Member info, member sites, and the Robin Hood's crew. Sign up, of course, let's remind listeners, is free. There is another more subscription type approach that takes things to another level, where you actually are rewarded with your own member site subdomain URL. So, for example, WPRPN.com/forum Borealis. In your case, though, Al, you don't have to pay for anything. Why? Because you've been a guest on the show. All guests, it's a matter of policy, are awarded complimentary subdomain URLs. If you're interested, all you got to do is if you're comfortable with WordPress, things should pretty much fall into place on their own. So
but I think people could chip in a few bucks in donations to your project.
We got our store there in place, the Teespring store. So I'm working on sharing that link. I don't think we have this go round. It's something that I've got to remember to do a little more here, so I'll just work on tracking it down and seeing that people out there are able to access that via the restream, and then I suppose we'll put a copy of the link up in Facebook as well. But in the meantime, you and we should be focusing on heading off to the after show. Was there anything that you think we missed out on? I know you wanted to get into the comments as much as you could. There's a lot. The comment section has been just hyperdrive this go round. So
someone suggests I should be a cabin boy.
Oh God. It kind of sounds like with that comment you made. How did you get on the win your way into the ship by
and your actual favors. First mate announced his presence. I think he feels deserving.
I'm sorry. The who did what?
The first mate.
And who is that
of
exactly?
the ship, Mr. A.
Mr. A. Okay, that's
He asked me how my sword play is. I say, ask the dead guys.
touche. Yeah, touche.
Exactly.
Touche indeed. So, yes. Well, we're just once again looking for the. Oh, geez, we got the Secret Santa. You know this. Here we go. The Teespring link. Actually, I figured. I realized there's another place I know where we can.
I
track
actually
that
have
down.
I have 3 swords on my wall here.
Really?
Now, well, one of them is probably a saber. One of them was used in the Crimean War.
No kidding. Well, here's the thing, to think about. A lot of people don't know about this, but speaking of the Corsairs and the Ottomans and the Barbary Coast, there were close to supposedly 1 million Europeans, approximately is the number that I've come across repeatedly, over the course of, I don't know, at least 100 years or so, during the 1500s, somewhere in that area, 15, maybe 1600s at the latest. They were kidnapped and taken into bondage, slavery, at the hands of these Muslim pirate invaders, as far as away as Iceland. Crazy stuff.
Yeah, some pirates were raiding slave ships and taking the slaves. Some were just raiding and taking slaves, enslaving. Some were freeing slaves, converting them to pirates. So there was all sorts of pirates, different kinds. Not everybody as romantic as one would thought. There were Muslim pirates, but there was also, we call them, if they worked for the Ottoman Emperor, they were called pirates, right? Just as the French fleet would be called, or the Spanish would by the English. But then there were those who went they didn't work for any emperor or empire, and that's really the real kind of pirates, right? Otherwise, you're just demonizing the enemy. But if they're not working for a top dog, if they're really quote unquote anarchists, then they're pirates in my book.
Those are freebooters as compared to the privateers. Very important.
And what's the most important? This is full circle. What's the most important thing in politics?
Freebooting? I don't know.
Yeah, kind of freedom. In my book, at least.
Oh, I see.
That's the most important.
I see.
There's a hierarchy of values you have to identify, right?
Well, autonomy is really critical.
Probably
you got to have that. You got to respect that too. So, and that's
because with freedom, everything else is possible.
Just let people be. That's the Taoist approach versus the Confucianist, the authoritarian, where you got to control everything through governance. Yeah. That's a key word to be on the lookout for. Governance. Watch out, folks. You keep that out of your realm, or you end up finding yourself becoming one of these slaves. Autonomy, self-naming is what it comes down to. But at the same time, we need to be well educated in the sense of having spent time and reflecting on where we're coming at things from and what our objective is, and just working with each situation as it arises, making the most of it for optimal results, of course. So, anyways, I think we've pretty much hit the end of the road, my friend. The OBS tells me we've just on the verge of reaching a 3-hour mark here. So what an epic adventure. Thank you so much. Anything more you'd like to add before we cue up the outro? We will get you to mute yourself too, by the way, so keep that in mind. It's really important you take care of that from your end. But how would you like to take us home before we slide on out of here to either the scurvy dog, the howling wolf, or the mossy wench? We've got these 3 resident watering holes down here in Skullport Harbor. Your choice, of course. Mossy wench. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
No, just say, how much does it cost to become a member of your...
Well, there's subscriptions for the member site subdomain URLs.
No, to listen into, for example, the post show.
Oh, the premium. That's whatever. It's as little as $1 per item.
Okay. Chip in $1, folks, and we'll give you an hour more. Or half an hour more.
Pirate tip jar. Thank you. So, we definitely could stand to have more help on Patreon. Minds.com, we get a reasonable number of crypto tokens coming in from time to time. We're always open to PayPal donations. Pirate one.
Yeah, I want to. Can I say? Can we just take 5 more minutes? I have something to say to people about that, because we've been taking $1 donations forever through PayPal. I just realized the other day, PayPal is scheming 40%. When people give us $1, we get 0.6 back. So when we get $1,000, PayPal actually takes 400. So we're going to change the system now. We're going to reform it next year. We're still going to let people in for $1, but we're going to require that they pay $12 minimum. It would be for a year, because we say $1 minimum per month, but instead we're going to make them pay like a year or more, because then PayPal wouldn't take $4 of those, or $5 of those $12, if you see what I mean. They would just take, I think, I don't know, $1 or something, and that's better for us, because then we get more revenue from it. You see what I mean? And we're also going to really try to get Bitcoin. There's so many people who approach us all the time and say, hey, I want to donate in Bitcoin. The problem is we haven't figured out how to do it, but we're gonna implement something called Stripe, so they don't have to use PayPal or Patreon, because PayPal and Patreon that's piracy. that's robbery. High octane robbery. So and people don't like to make accounts for PayPal and Patreon. So we're going to put in Stripe, then they can just use a card. We would, if someone wrote to me a detailed step-by-step instruction of how to set up a CryptoCoin account that can take all coins. Even Cliff tried to explain this to me. He even wrote, a procedure in mail to me, but not detailed enough. I need like a foolproof idiot's version, like click here, go there, write this, whatever. If someone bothered to do that, I'd give them a lifetime free membership or subscription access to our show, because we don't have the time or resources. We're behind all the time. How can we start, studying up on this? So just excuse our ignorance. But if someone bothers to do that, we're going to implement that too. But we really need a guide, a really detailed, like it can't be like I have to look up something or educate myself on something. It really just have to be like feeding a bot. Okay.
Idiot proof, I think, might be applicable.
Retard version, yeah.
So
if someone bothered to do that, I'll give them a free access.
That's a great deal.
Left.
Yeah. Well, I'll do what I can to help get you set up a little better over on minds.com.
Yeah. And bitch, in December this month, I'm gonna start uploading to BitChute too.
BitChute, we've been really happy. We're getting way more traction on BitChute than YouTube, if you can believe that. And we don't even live. We upload to BitChute. We don't live stream or nothing. So and they still.
So we are not
still
live
getting
streaming
more
in
views
BitChute right now.
No. They might bring that on board in the next year. I think I've heard some rumors, some rumbling. Somewhere along those lines. But anyways, we gotta wrap this one up. It's been an epic time. I'll get you to mute yourself once again there, Al, as we sail on out of here. Cue things up. Thanking everybody, of course, who's helped out, both in the comments section as well as just doing what you can to share the links, get the word out. That's really what we need. Of course, here being a small, independent, online, underground, open-sourced, guerrilla-type, Fifth Estate, alternative media platform. Pirate Radio Podcasts, the flagship to the wider WPRPN network. We will be back this Tuesday with our final installment of World Pirate Radio News, followed by our year in review next Friday, same time as always, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 11 out on the East Coast. That, of course, is 1 p.m. here in Tokyo and Seoul. And from what we saw today, let's not forget, 5 a.m. in Oslo and other places, of course, across Europe. Be sure to drop us a line, pirate1radio at protonmail.com, for any guest ideas or shows that you might have in mind. Follow all the show description notes that we have available down the YouTube comment, show description area, and that'll hopefully lead you in the right direction. We'll be able to get in touch and put together some hopefully productive, creative works of whatever sort over time here. Operation Secret Santa once again coming up quite shortly. We're pretty stoked about that. Of course, it is our, I can't believe it, fifth attempt at launching this campaign. So we'll see if this manages to pick up a little more momentum and traction than last year and the previous ones before that. It is largely up to you, the listener, to help get the word out. All we could do here from this end is see to it that the platform is made available and that people have the Operation Secret Santa link available to them, that they've read the material, that they understand the way we have things set up here clearly enough, and that they're willing to engage us on some level, presenting, if they have any talent available, maybe some music or comedy of some sort, for example, if they're able to put forward a product, some item or service of some sort out on the auction table, put it up for bid, or they're able, for that matter, to bid actually on an item or a service itself. That's really critical too, right? So, and all the proceeds do go directly to charity. It sounds like you're dropping back into the conversation there, Al.
Yeah, I just want to encourage people. It's such a great thing, this effort. So I mean, there's so many charity things that are bullshit, but this actually is because you can discuss causes, politics in causes, or partisanship or whatever, but who doesn't want to help the downtrodden?
We're making outfits such as UNICEF, the Red Cross, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. What are the other big ones? All of them are the same. We're making them. Look at that ice bucket challenge. What a scam! They were taking all of these endeavors, something like 90% on the dollar, 90 cents on the dollar. Are you kidding me? What a joke! There's no strings attached. It's just everything goes directly to charity. If you yourself, as the winning bidder, opt to, if you want to send something our way, that's your prerogative, really. It's your choice. But we do encourage you to have a charity of your selection in mind, and we'll work together.
In the post show, this is just a teaser. Let's talk about the real reason behind Christmas.
Oh yeah, of course, and that's going to come up
I have some interesting inputs.
Well, that's good, and hopefully you can join us again at some point over the campaign. I know it's an early start for you, but
well, you'll join us at least.
We'll do something. I mean, if I have to get up at 5 a.m., I'll do that too, just because, you did it for us, I can do it for you.
That was my plan, to turn the tables.
I'd rather not, but I mean, if we have to, then I guess that's the way it's going to have to be.
Do a simulcast. No, we'll find a time that appeals. 80% of my audience are in Europe or East Coast America. And the hours we've been doing today is just impossible for them. So we'll find a time that appeals across the board. We'll try to find a time that I believe you knew the clock for that, but which can reel in both the Oceanic people, the Asian people, the Europeans, and the Americas. Has to be some kind of optimal time for that. We'll do it then, okay?
Absolutely. I'm not sure, just looking at the comments here, and this is the way I do respond, just when something pops up on our screen here and I'm able to engage things. But I'm not sure if John Armstrong is making a joke here, talking about his data, and China will gladly take your. I think he's a little tongue-in-cheek here. Make sure you use a Huawei server. That's, Huawei. This is the thing. Over on Twitter, I cannot remove these jerks. They're constantly being suggested and recommended that we follow them on Twitter. I don't want to follow Huawei on Twitter. I don't really like I don't like the way they roll, to tell you the truth. I get a bad feeling.
Are we at the post show now?
Not yet. No, we're trying to make our way, but I'm just engaging some of the comments here, which I have, been freely encouraging you to do here the whole time
and West Coast American. No, but John, the time today was optimal for you West Coast people. That's why I'm saying East Coast, because it wasn't a problem for West Coasters, right? What time is it in California now, for example?
That would be about, I think, 2 p.m., approximately 20 past 2. But
yeah, that's because we've been going for a long time.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going to try to accommodate the whole globe at once. Maybe they will have trouble tuning in from the Pacific or Antarctica. But actually in Antarctica and in Arctic, the time is on all the time.
Well, here's the thing, Al. The really critical.
It's the same hour all the time.
Okay.
It's just an eternal even now.
Al, the really prescient, critical point that we need to emphasize and convey to the listeners, those of whom have not yet dropped out of the conversation, thinking that we're winding down, which we are doing here. Trust me. But that our plan, we got about 15 or so on YouTube and smattering of others across, with DLive and Facebook. But anyways, what the point being is that we each day have committed ourselves. We have pledged our time, an hour of live streaming per day, at which point when we finish our stream, the idea is to hand it off to the next live streamer in the next time zone. And when they're done their shift, they continue to follow suit and hand it on to the following person as the world turns 24/7 over the course of 10 days, all for the cause of charity, all for the cause of generating more positive vibration, of course, across the planet, goodwill, and the true spirit and meaning of what Christmas is all about. It is that one time of the year where even bloody atheists can learn to be a little more charitable. We're challenging them in a direct way. I'm calling out all atheists to prove that they're not the Grinch-type personalities that so many people think they are. But if you follow my drift with the baton,
or dicks, as we say in the professional lingo, yeah.
But handing off the baton as the world turns, which from one live streaming outlet to the next. If you can picture that in your mind, what I'm getting at there. So
wonderful.
You follow me on that one, or? You get that?
Absolutely.
Sure. Okay. So the big thing is just to pass the word along. We're going to do our part in trying to, generate further interest and awareness regarding this whole matter. But in the meantime, we'll just get you to mute out there, Al. We're going to head off to the after show. This is it. Third time's a charm, I suppose. It's been about that, those many attempts here this go around. So, once again, pirate1radio@protonmail.com is our email. Be sure to check out what we have put together over at minds.com, Pirate Radio Network, and keep in mind that we're always looking for people to help out with moderation of groups over there. We got friends that are looking for help as well, too. There's a lot of great groups that we're a part of, we're actively engaged in, and we need you to reach out and yourself become more engaged on that level. In the meantime, it's been a great ride. Thank you so much. Hopefully get Al back again maybe next year. It's turning out to be something of a regular kind of feature around here each and every year come December. Last time around it was, I believe, the spring equinox, so talk about timing. But having said all that, let's I'm just looking at Mr. Anderson right now, sporting our first ever item sold through Teespring, the T-shirt we have there, which is looking pretty decent on him indeed. So until we meet again out on the high digital seas, on behalf of Captain Long John Sinclair and all the rest of the crew here aboard the Robin Hood, I'm your host as always, the show's Chief Communications Officer, Jaffe Ryder. Tally-ho.
I know.
There we be. Having carefully looked over each of our navigation panel instruments,
checking every level, switch, dial, cable, knob, and pulley, by all accounts and indications, we indeed see it's time, once again, to drop anchor inside Mystic Bay.
draw an end to yet another week of World Pirate Radio Live.
Remember,
If you're looking for a little more animated online action,
keep in mind, we've likely got yet another great free-flowing Rogues Gallery after show
coming up for the next hour in one of our more premium exclusive and remote digital underground online pirate hideaways. Also, if you yourself have a new,
novel, intriguing, or otherwise underreported idea, unique individual, or pressing item in mind, be sure to either drop us a line directly over on WPRPN.com or fire us a quick email
via pirateoneradio@gmail.com.
We're always open to exploring fresh creative suggestions, intriguing guest ideas, cutting-edge discussion topics, and captivating themes. WPRPN.com network subdomain links are also now available. Great for artists, musicians, podcasters, bloggers, social media personalities,
or pretty much just any old land lover
looking to boost their online visibility, presence, and reach.
Basic personal profile accounts can be launched for just $60 per year.
Staking your claim now helps not only strengthen you and the network, we're also looking out for the little guy. That's right, folks. As much as half of all WPRPN's profits are redirected right back into the hands of the people who really need it most. Community charity. After all, we are the Robin Hood.
You can further embark on your own personal pirate journey by either liking, sharing,
commenting on, subscribing to, or just following us via virtually any mainstream social media platform, including Twitter, Facebook, Google+, or Minds.com. So don't forget to become engaged. Until we meet again out on the high digital seas, I'm your host as always, the ship's Chief Communications Officer, Jaffe Ryder. Tally-ho.